A date wasn't a date without a movie. They'd picked a new animated film, one that promised to be a poignant exploration of the human condition, both heartwarming and inspirational. It was about a girl who, after growing up in an orphanage, discovered she wasn't an orphan at all. She'd been abandoned. The film followed her journey as she ran away to find the parents she'd spent years creating elaborate, forgiving fantasies about. But the reality was brutal. When she finally found them, she saw them doting on her younger brother, spoiling him without principle or restraint. She realized there had been no noble sacrifice, no tragic necessity. They had given her up for one simple, soul-crushing reason. They hadn't wanted a girl. The film showed her spiraling into despair, nearly giving up, before the kindness of others helped her find the strength to build a new life, eventually becoming a success story far beyond the reach of the ignorant family who had discarded her. As the movie played, Alex kept glancing at Sophia. He regretted picking this one on a whim. A knot tightened in his chest, the story hitting far too close to home. The fictional girl's life was different from Sophia's, but he couldn't stop drawing parallels. The silent struggle Sophia must have endured, the psychological torment. It had to be 100 times worse than what was depicted on screen. Around them, more sentimental viewers were openly weeping when the protagonist finally found her peace, smiling at her adoptive parents and calling them mom and dad for the first time. Alex wondered what kind of impact Sophia's real story would have if it were ever put on film. A poor little rich girl who clawed her way up to become the formidable CEO of a major corporation. It had all the makings of a blockbuster. Or, written as a novel, a best-selling tale of a triumphant heroine. The one constant through it all was Sophia. She seemed completely unfazed, her eyes fixed on the screen as she calmly popped pieces of popcorn into her mouth. The crisp, satisfying crunch was the only sound she made. Worried she'd get thirsty, Alex would occasionally lift a bottle of water to her lips, and after she took a sip, he'd take one himself. Sophia had gotten better at hiding her feelings. She managed to fool him completely. In reality, she hadn't registered a single frame of the movie. Husband, a little red wine before bed helps with sleep. Sophia emerged from the bathroom, freshly showered, holding a half-full glass of wine. Alex took it, but as he raised it to his lips, he caught her watching him with an oddly expectant gaze. When she saw him hesitate, she prompted, "Go on, drink it. I poured it for you myself. Finish it all. Don't let it go to waste." A strange feeling crept over him. As their eyes met, he could have sworn he saw a flicker of evasion in hers. If he drank this sleep aid, would he really sleep soundly through the night? His mind flashed back to his first night in the house, when Sophia had brought him a glass of lemonade. He'd slept like the dead, not waking until the sun was high in the sky. It had been an unnervingly deep sleep. Alex took a small sip. "Is it good?" Sophia asked immediately. He swirled the wine in his mouth. "It's all right." It was far more than all right. It was a $15,000 bottle, a vintage masterpiece, rich, smooth, with a lingering finish. It was exquisite. An idea sparked in his mind. He extended the glass toward her. "You have a sip, too?" Sophia pulled back. "I made that especially for you. Don't waste my kindness." If his initial suspicion had felt like paranoia, her refusal confirmed it. There was definitely something in this wine, just as there had been in that lemonade. If it had been anyone else, Alex would have slammed the glass down and demanded to know what game they were playing. But this was Sophia. His Sophia. She would never hurt him. He just couldn't fathom why she was doing this. He thought he knew her so well, but in that moment, he realized he didn't know her as well as he believed. This wasn't just about helping him sleep. He decided to play along. Pretending he noticed nothing, Alex drained the rest of the wine in one go, then settled into bed. Sophia curled up against him, and he wrapped his arm around her. Everything felt the same as always, except for the half glass of possibly drugged wine now sitting in his stomach. He let his breathing even out, feigning sleep. A few minutes later, the still form in his arm shifted. Sophia carefully lifted his arm from her waist. She traced a finger along his jaw, then leaned down and pressed a soft kiss to his lips, tasting the faint trace of wine. "Sleep well, my sleeping beauty," she whispered. She tucked the comforter around him and slipped out of bed. The bedroom was pitch black, but she moved through the darkness with an unnerving familiarity, her steps silent and sure, never once bumping into anything. She didn't know that the moment her bare feet touched the floor, her sleeping beauty's eyes snapped open in the darkness. Alex sat up and quietly spit the mouthful of wine he'd held in his cheek into a tissue. He'd swallowed about half of it, but either the dose was too small or his racing thoughts were overriding its effects. He felt wide awake. He heard her light footsteps fade down the hall and the soft click of a door closing. She had gone to such lengths to keep this from him. He couldn't just chase after her. Alex hesitated, a wave of frustration washing over him. Sophia had survived a childhood he couldn't even imagine, long before he was there to help. She was more than capable of handling herself. And that was the problem. Alex felt a surge of inadequacy. He was a man. He was supposed to be her rock, her safe harbor. But in reality, he was the one living under her protection. The most helpful thing he could do for her was to stay out of her way and not cause any trouble. The sense of failure was suffocating. After a long moment, he couldn't stand it anymore. He opened the bedroom door and stepped out into the hallway. Sophia was gone. The entire villa was swallowed by a profound darkness and silence. For a dizzying moment, it felt as if he were the only person left in the world, an unbearable, crushing loneliness. Outside, a storm had rolled in. The sound of rain lashing against the windows and the wind howling through the trees amplified the anxiety churning in his gut. It felt like a nightmare, terrifying not because of monsters or mayhem, but because Sophia wasn't in it. He had lost her. She was gone, and he had no idea where. The girl who supposedly couldn't sleep without him in her arms had vanished. Or, more accurately, she had left him. A tidal wave of panic crashed over him, squeezing the air from his lungs. Had she abandoned him? Left him all alone on this desolate island of a house? Was this all just some fleeting dream? Suddenly, the hallway flooded with light, dispelling the shadows. Alex flinched, shielding his stinging eyes. When he could see again, Arthur Lowe was standing before him. "Mr. Lowe, what's going on?" The moment he saw him, a siren went off in Alex's head. This was the first time he had ever seen Arthur Lowe inside the residence. Lowe and Charles Harrington were Sophia's left and right hands. Charles was her domestic chief of staff, always at her side within the estate. Lowe was her external arm. Before Alex's return, his duties had been a mystery, but since then, he'd been tasked with Alex's security, essentially serving as his personal bodyguard whenever he left the property. The villa was a fortress, equipped with state-of-the-art security. There was no need for Lowe to be here. His presence could only mean one thing. Is Sophia in trouble? Alex demanded, his voice tight. Is this place not safe anymore? Before Lowe could answer, he followed up with the only question that truly mattered. Where is she? Where is Sophie? Lowe, a man who rarely smiled, had deep-set worry lines between his brows. He consciously tried to smooth his expression. Miss Sophia will be back soon, Mr. Turner. The best thing for you to do right now is go back to your room and get some sleep. He had to manage his own anxiety, or he'd only make the kid more frantic. He could see Alex was already stretched to his breaking point. One more push, and he might just snap. At the same time, a part of Lowe felt a deep satisfaction. Miss Sophia gave this boy her entire world, and he, in turn, was utterly devoted to her. So this was what true love looked like. It was a good thing. Still, Lowe was baffled. His boss was meticulous. She never made mistakes. She had assured him Alex was sound asleep. So how was he standing here wide awake? He sighed. The only person who could ever make Miss Sophia slip up was probably Alex Turner. Lowe's first instinct had been to just knock the kid out and carry him back to bed. He'd even started to raise his hand before a terrifying thought stopped him. This was the absolute center of Miss Sophia's universe. If he misjudged the blow and hurt him, she would lose her mind. Absolutely. So, he turned on the lights instead. It seemed Alex was the one on the verge of losing it. Mr. Lowe, where is she? Alex's voice cracked. Why is she out in the middle of the night? Something's happened, and you're all hiding it from me. When am I going to be more than just an outsider? When will I ever truly be a part of this? Mr. Turner, Lowe said, his tone laced with concern. Are you all right? Alex was far from all right. He grabbed Lowe's shoulders, his grip desperate. Please just tell me where she is. Now. The terrifying feeling of abandonment from moments before was still clinging to him. The only thing that could steady his heart was Sophia. He deeply regretted playing along when she'd left. He should have followed her, stayed by her side no matter what. Miss Sophia has some business to attend to. She'll be back very. I asked you where she's right now. Alex roared, his frustration boiling over. Lowe's evasiveness felt like a betrayal. Or maybe his anger was really directed at Sophia. Why did she have to drug his wine? Why did she always keep him in the dark, shouldering every burden alone as if she were invincible? Had it never once occurred to her to lean on him? Alex knew his own limitations. Even with the knowledge from his past life, he hadn't gained some insurmountable advantage. To the outside world, he was the strong young man, and Sophia was the delicate woman who needed protecting. The reality was the complete opposite. Sophia's immense strength only served to highlight his own weakness. In her eyes, he was a fragile piece of glass, and she had built a protective case around him to keep him from shattering. But in doing so, she had also created a distance between them. Most days, he cherished the feeling of being treasured by her. But at critical moments like this, it just made him feel useless. He had become her liability. Was that all he was to her? He admitted he was weak, but was he so worthless that he couldn't even offer her emotional support? For the first time, he felt an overwhelming powerlessness from his own insignificance. Lo, stunned by Alex's uncharacteristic anger, quickly realized it was born of worry, not malice. Mr. Turner. I'm sorry, Mr. Lo, Alex's shoulders slumped in defeat. He waved a hand dismissively. Lo was just following orders. It wasn't his fault. He sank onto the sofa, his eyes fixed on the front door, his face a mask of exhaustion. The rain outside had softened to a steady, melancholic drizzle. Seeing him like this, Lo couldn't bring himself to tell him to go back to sleep. Instead, he sat in the armchair opposite him, keeping a silent vigil. You don't have to stay with me, Mr. Lo, Alex said quietly. I can't sleep. I'll just sit here for a while. Lo offered a small, sympathetic smile. He pulled a cigarette from his pocket and placed it between his lips, but didn't light it. He'd quit. After decades as a heavy smoker, sometimes burning through multiple packs a day, he'd quit cold turkey. Miss Sophia had given him an ultimatum. Quit smoking or get out. She didn't want anyone on her team who lacked self-control. He knew it was because she was worried about his health, and not wanting her to waste another thought on his wretched life, he had gritted his teeth and done it. His cough had vanished, his appetite returned, and he felt healthier than he had in years. It was a good thing. He rolled the unlit cigarette between his lips for a moment before speaking, his voice low. You must have done something right in a past life. Alex knew what he meant. A bitter smile touched his lips. If he'd really done something right, it must have been 2 lifetimes ago. He didn't want to think about the last one. Miss Sophia is a good kid, Lo said, his voice catching. He paused. Alex looked up, sensing a sudden, profound sadness fill the air. Lo's mouth twisted into a pained grin. If my daughter were still alive, she'd be about the same age as her. Alex's eyes widened. He felt a pang of unease, unsure of what to say. He remained silent. Miss Sophia told me, if I didn't mind, I could think of her as my daughter. Lo removed the cigarette from his mouth, his hand trembling slightly. If it wasn't for her, all of us, where would we be now? Probably rotting in a hell of our own making. Alex's lips trembled, a sharp sting burning the back of his eyes. His Sophia. On the surface, she was so cold, so distant. But in reality, she used all her strength to bring warmth and safety to everyone she cared about. Arthur Lo, Charles Harrington, Mrs. Helen. Everyone who worked for her had a hidden, painful past. They had gathered around her, forming a fiercely loyal circle, ready to walk through fire for her. In return, she had given them a sanctuary, stable jobs, and something they had all lost, their dignity. Alex was speechless. He knew Sophia was remarkable, and he knew her people were devoted to her, but he'd never imagined the bond between them was forged in such deep, shared history. Their pasts were scars they didn't touch. Alex had no desire to reopen old wounds, even though Lo seemed willing to share his own story if he was interested. He shook his head. He couldn't be that cruel. Instead, he tried a different approach. Mr. Lo, can you at least tell me if she's in serious trouble? Lo considered his words carefully. It's likely a significant problem, but don't you worry. There's no challenge on this earth that she can't overcome. She's the most brilliant person I've ever met. Alex gave a humorless laugh. No one knew better than him that Sophia wasn't invincible. In his past life, after he was gone, she had. He was more important to her than he could possibly fathom. When do you think she'll be back? Definitely before dawn. Which is why, Mr. Turner, the best thing you can do is get some rest. Miss Sophia would hate to see you losing sleep over her. It was true. Sophia would be heartbroken. Her care for him was meticulous, almost suffocatingly so. She never complained, never saw it as a burden. But Sophie, have you ever considered that I worry about you two? He thought desperately. You know I do, which is why you go to such lengths to hide things from me. You build this perfect bubble to keep me safe, but that's not what I want. I want to stand with you. Alex stood up. All right, Mr. Lo, I'm going back to my room. You should get some sleep, too. Lo nodded, watching him disappear up the stairs before settling back into the armchair. Tonight, sleep was a luxury neither of them would have. Back in the bedroom, the king-size bed felt impossibly large and empty. But if Sophia found out he hadn't listened, she'd be upset. On the other hand, it had been a long time since she'd shown him her cold side. Progress, he supposed. He lay down mechanically, staring at the ceiling until his eyes ached. He closed them, and a chaotic jumble of thoughts and fragmented images, both real and imagined, swirled through his mind. Is it her biological mother? He wondered, deep-seated revulsion growing inside him. That woman must be completely insane. He felt a profound hatred for this person he'd never met. It wasn't enough that she'd ruined Sophia's childhood. Now she had to come back and poison her adult life. Did she think giving birth to Sophia gave her the right to destroy her? Alex fantasized about having her committed to a psychiatric hospital surrounded by an electric fence where she could never bother Sophia again. His mind raced, desperately trying to recall details from his past life, a life he preferred to forget. Maybe this was just how life worked. Whenever things felt too easy, fate would throw a wrench in the works to remind you to cherish what you have. Back then, when Sophia had held him captive, he'd prayed every day for some disaster to strike, anything that would allow him to escape. But her life had seemed so perfectly controlled, so devoid of trouble. Or perhaps she had encountered problems and simply handled them so flawlessly that they never rippled the surface of her life. The thought brought him a sliver of comfort. That's right. In his previous life, the biggest problem Sophia ever faced was him, his stubborn, foolish refusal to accept her. The trajectory of this life was largely the same, except for his own choices. So this time, Sophia would be fine. She had to be. In a lavishly decorated room across the city, a young woman had changed from comfortable pajamas into a sharp business suit. A small, elegant porcelain cup sat before her, the rich aroma of coffee filling the air. Opposite her sat a young man, not much older than her, dressed in a stylish, light-colored casual blazer. He had a roguish air about him, but it couldn't mask the sharp, commanding presence of someone used to being in charge. He lifted his own cup, took a sip with practiced grace, and studied the girl across from him with a mixture of surprise, admiration, and intrigue. Sophia's expression was flat. "Keep staring, and I'll gouge your eyes out." Preston Vance flinched. He knew she liked her privacy, so he had dismissed his bodyguards and servants. It was just the two of them. If she decided to attack, he wasn't entirely sure he could stop her. He offered a weary smile. "Why haven't you changed at all?" Sophia shot him a look of utter disdain. "None of your damn business." Preston sighed. If anyone else on Earth had dared to speak to him with that tone, they'd be long dead. "Are you like this with him too? Do you let him see this charming side of yours?" The him was obvious. Sophia's eyelids lifted, her gaze turning cold and sharp. A murderous intent flickered in her beautiful, dark eyes. If it weren't for this idiot, she would be curled up in her husband's arms, lost in a wonderful dream, not staring at this man's infuriatingly fake face. "Preston," she said, her voice dangerously low, "out of respect for my uncle, I don't want to make things ugly between us. Can't we just stay out of each other's way?" "Stay out of each other's way?" Preston repeated, then let out a low chuckle. "How is that possible? Joe, don't you hear how ridiculous that sounds? We're cut from the same cloth. We're family. We can never truly be separate." Joe was what they used to call her. It was the same nickname the imposter Mrs. Zimmerman had used so cloyingly. She much preferred Sophie, and only a select few were allowed to call her that. "Joe, do you remember that year when we—" "Get to the point," she cut him off, her patience worn thin. Being dragged from her husband's warm embrace to deal with this clown was already testing the limits of her self-control. She had no time for his nostalgic ramblings. "What do you want? What's so special about that kid?" Preston asked, his expression shifting to one of pained disappointment. "Joe, do you have any idea how much it hurts me to see you like this?" He had seen the pictures of her with that Alex Turner, acting like a lovesick teenager, clinging to him in public as if she wanted to broadcast her foolishness to the entire world. It baffled him. He'd once wondered if the Sophia he knew had a heart made of ice. She seemed incapable of love, so how could she possibly be in love with someone? The genuine, heartfelt smiles she wore around Alex were completely foreign to him. She was becoming someone he didn't recognize. If Dad knew that you, his prized protege, were no different from any other silly girl, he would be so disappointed. "None of your damn business," Sophia repeated, her voice dropping another degree. "Spit it out." Preston's temper finally snapped. He slammed his cup on the table, shattering it. Brown liquid splattered everywhere, the scent of coffee instantly filling the room. "Sophia, look at yourself. Look at what you've become," he roared. "You are a once-in-a-generation genius. You have a destiny to fulfill, to build an empire that controls the global economy. Together, we could be unstoppable. I can't just stand by and watch you throw it all away. It's my duty to pull you back from this dead end." He shook his head, his voice filled with contempt. You've become a complete disappointment. Dad would be turning in his grave. He sneered. Do you really think Alex Turner loves you? How long have you even known him? Oh, right. You knew him before Dad brought you home, didn't you? Sophia watched him, her face an unreadable mask. His father, her uncle Edward Vance, had overseen a vast and shadowy organization. The night he'd taken her in, he had told her, his face grim, the weak have no right to freedom. If you want it, you must become strong. From that day on, Edward had subjected her to a training regimen 10 times more brutal than anything her mother had ever devised. Her mind was force-fed knowledge, her body pushed to its absolute limits. Every day was an exhausting ordeal. She felt less like a person and more like an animal. But strangely, she never fought back, never considered giving up. The memory of the boy who had been her first light, and the hope of seeing him again, was the only thing that kept her going through those sunless years. In the time Alex had been missing from her life, he had been with her every second of every day, a silent, unknowing participant in her transformation. Without Alex Turner, the Sophia of today would not exist. Preston's expression softened into one of pity. He reached out, as if to touch her face. Joe, maybe he does love you right now. But what does he love? Your youth? Your beauty? Your unimaginable wealth? What do you think will happen when he finds out about your past? About the darkness inside you? About the blood on your hands? He'll be terrified. He'll be disgusted. And he will leave you without a second thought. Joe, I need you to understand. Alex Turner is just an ordinary man. He doesn't sir. Crack. A sharp slap echoed through the room, cutting him off mid-sentence. Before Preston could react, Sophia sprang forward, driving a vicious kick into his midsection with enough force to shatter bone. He crumpled to the floor, gasping for air. The commotion brought people running. 2 groups burst into the room, one belonging to Preston, the other, led by Charles Harrington, belonging to Sophia. Preston's men saw him on the ground and rushed to his side, glaring daggers at Sophia. Charles and his team, however, looked entirely unconcerned. That's what you get for messing with our Miss Sophia. Their calm demeanor seemed to say. The atmosphere crackled with tension. Sophia's voice was ice. Preston Vance, you'd be wise to mind your own business. Otherwise, I promise you will regret it. Preston wiped a trickle of blood from his lip. He knew she wasn't making an empty threat, but he wasn't playing games either. He needed her to achieve his global ambitions. How could he let her drown in a sea of stupid, sentimental nonsense? He had to stop her. Back in the villa, the man in the bed slept fitfully. He was like a startled bird, jolted from a half-conscious state by the slightest sound. He sat bolt upright, his eyes locked on the bedroom door. In the pitch-dark room, he thought he saw the doorknob slowly turning. He held his breath. Is it her? Is Sophia finally home? A part of him desperately wanted to know, but instead of jumping up, he lay back down and closed his eyes, pretending to be fast asleep. A faint, clean scent of shower gel drifted into the room, and the knot in his chest finally loosened. It was her. She was back, and she'd gone to her own room to shower first. So thoughtful, so considerate, not wanting to disturb him. She stopped by the side of the bed, unmoving. If Alex had a guess, she was probably watching him sleep, though he had no idea what she could possibly see in the total darkness. He feigned a sleepy sigh and rolled over, turning his face away from her. He felt the mattress dip as Sophia carefully climbed into bed, settling on her side to face him. He fought the overwhelming urge to pull her into his arms. As she always did, she draped her hand over his waist. A second later, she gasped. Her hand, resting on his waist, was pushed away. The bedside lamp flicked on, flooding the room with light. Alex's expression was thunderous. His features were as handsome as ever, but his face was a mask of cold fury. Sophia reached for him, her voice trembling. Husband. He slapped her hand away. He curled into a sitting position, rubbing his temples wearily. Don't you have anything to say to me? She nervously twisted the hem of her pajamas, her long hair falling over her shoulders, making her pale face seem even more fragile. I'm sorry, she whispered. I shouldn't have put anything in your wine. How many times? He demanded. Her voice was barely audible. 2. So he'd been right. The first time was the lemonade. He'd known his soul wasn't that resilient. That was your first night here, she explained. I was afraid you wouldn't be able to sleep in a new place, so. What Sophia didn't say was that back then, Alex had made her deeply uneasy. He seemed docile, but his eyes were always full of secrets. His compliance wasn't genuine. She was afraid he would try to run away in the middle of the night, even though, once inside the estate, escape was impossible. There was another reason, too. She couldn't control her own desperate desire to be close to him. She knew a fully conscious Alex would have resisted. It was a terrible solution, but she couldn't stop herself. "I'm sorry, husband. I was wrong. But you'd do it again, wouldn't you?" Silence stretched between them. Alex got out of bed. Sophia grabbed his hand. "Where are you going?" He gave her a strange look. "To get up. It's after 6. I'm going for a run. You should sleep." Sophia watched, stunned, as he went into the bathroom, then into the walk-in closet. He emerged moments later in a fresh set of workout clothes and walked past her, his presence briefly brightening her mood. But the feeling vanished the instant he opened the bedroom door and left. Her head drooped, and a wave of regret washed over her. He was angry. Her good-tempered husband was angry with her for the first time. She hadn't used enough last night. If she had just added a little more, he would be sleeping soundly right now, blissfully unaware. All the hardship, all the danger, that was for her to face, for her to solve. She couldn't bear the thought of him sharing her burdens. Her husband was meant to enjoy life, to be happy. He was right. She'd say she was sorry, but she would do it again. The grounds of the estate were vast and beautiful, like a private park. With a white towel draped around his neck, Alex jogged along a winding cobblestone path, the morning air fragrant with the scent of flowers and damp earth. He passed Charles Harrington and greeted him with a polite, "Good morning, Charles." He saw Arthur Lowe and offered a similar greeting. He acted as if nothing was wrong. Charles and Lowe exchanged a look and shook their heads. He was definitely angry, but putting themselves in his shoes, they understood completely. Not that Miss Sophia was wrong, either. Charles's usual gentle smile vanished, replaced by a cold fury. Preston Vance is digging his own grave. Lowe sighed regretfully. It would have been so much better if he'd just left her alone. If he'd made any other mistake, Miss Sophia might have let it slide for Edward's sake. But he had to go, and Edward was Edward Vance. Charles, Lowe, and the others had all once worked for him. When Sophia passed the nearly impossible test Edward had set for her, he had honored his promise and granted her freedom. He had also fulfilled his promise to her grandmother, to raise Sophia into someone no one could ever bully again. The test, as it happened, had been to salvage a public company on the brink of bankruptcy. To set the stage, Edward had spent 2 years orchestrating the downfall of the once thriving Harlan Corp. When Sophia left, Edward had asked who wanted to go with her. She had taken Charles, Lowe, and a dozen others. Their choice had been the right one. Preston had become increasingly unhinged in recent years. Following him would have meant a lifetime of damnation. "He who sows the wind will reap the whirlwind," Charles said grimly. It was true. Even though Sophia was now facing off against the head of one of the world's most powerful shadow organizations, her top lieutenants weren't worried about her. They felt pity for him. Preston's ambition to control the world was his own business. Miss Sophia never meddled. His desire to leverage her talent was, in a way, understandable. But to demand that she leave Alex Turner? Anyone who knew Alex's place in Sophia's heart knew that was less likely than the sun rising in the west. Lowe grew thoughtful. "Charles, how much influence do you think her mother still has over her?" Just as he spoke, Charles's phone rang. After 10 laps around the grounds, Alex finally slowed to a walk, wiping his face with the towel as he headed toward the dining room. The workout left him glowing with youthful energy, but inside, he felt utterly defeated. The feeling of his own inadequacy was a persistent weight. Protecting a girl as fiercely capable as Sophia was a monumental task. It meant he had to become stronger than her, and that felt impossible. He was just an ordinary man. He couldn't do it. He wasn't enough. How can I not be enough? An elegant vase sat on the dining table, holding a few delicate, pale pink chrysanthemums. Sophia was leaning over it, carefully snipping a browning leaf. She wore a cream-colored tracksuit, her slender frame tied back in a low ponytail, looking even more graceful than the flowers. Alex's focus was elsewhere. Sophia was up and dressed, and had even been out to the garden. That meant she'd gotten up right after he had, even though she desperately needed to sleep. The thought sent a pang of guilt and tenderness through him. She had been ready to sleep, but he had been the one to get up, unable to stomach his own frustration. If he had stayed with her, she would still be in bed. "Why are you up?" he asked, his tone gently chiding. She smiled at him, her eyes showing little sign of fatigue. "It's fine, I'm not that tired. I'm not going into the office today. I can sleep whenever I feel like it." Alex didn't say anything more. He pulled out a chair and sat down. Sophia quietly took the seat across from him. A heavy silence descended upon them. The vast dining room felt empty with just the two of them. Yesterday, they had been inseparable. Today, they had nothing to say. Alex focused on his oatmeal, but he could feel her timid glances darting his way. A frustrated, angry knot formed in his stomach. He wasn't angry with her, he realized. He was angry with himself. He had no right to blame her for hiding things when he was too weak to protect the girl he loved. When she peeked at him for what felt like the 10th time, he finally broke. She looked so small, so careful, almost subservient. She was trying so hard to please him, terrified of his anger, but had no idea how. He much preferred her usual bossy, dominant self. He looked up and forced a smile. From now on, if you need to go out, just tell me. You don't have to hide it. I promise I won't ask any more questions. He needed to face reality. They were the same age, but their different life experiences had given them vastly different perspectives. The things Sophia dealt with were beyond his ability to handle. Alex knew he had to do something. He had to contribute, no matter how small his contribution was. He couldn't just keep taking everything Sophia gave him for granted. Even if she handled this crisis perfectly, what about the next one? They had a whole lifetime ahead of them, and he couldn't let her face every battle alone. He had to use the advantage of his rebirth, force himself to grow up faster, and become the man she could truly rely on. It would be hard, but how would he know he couldn't do it if he didn't even try? A man can't just say he can't. The moment he came to this resolution, it was like a clogged drain and his soul had been cleared. He felt a sense of release. But his newfound clarity had the opposite effect on Sophia. She stared at him, her eyes wide with alarm, and a faint blush of red crept from the corners of her eyes, spreading until they were rimmed in crimson. To her ears, his promise not to ask questions sounded like a promise not to care. He'll be terrified, he'll be disgusted, and he will leave you without a second thought. Preston's words echoed in her mind. Her hands, resting in her lap, began to tremble. She was not a good person. She was damaged. What kind of normal child could come from the union of a delusional narcissist and a selfish monster? The day she found Alex, she had sworn to herself she would never lose him again. If he ever tried to leave, she would use any means necessary to keep him. Morals? Boundaries? Did she even have them? No matter how normal she appeared on the surface, she couldn't erase the darkness in her bones. To satisfy her own selfish desires, she had drugged him. Twice. Alex had grown up in a normal, loving family. He had a healthy, traditional upbringing. Did he find her disgusting now? Despicable? Was he already secretly planning his escape? When Alex didn't get a response, he looked up at her and was horrified by what he saw. Sophia was crying. Tears streamed from her beautiful eyes, tracing silent paths down her pale cheeks and dripping from her chin. She sat perfectly still, like an exquisite porcelain doll, so fragile it seemed she might shatter at any moment. Alex panicked. He fumbled to wipe away her tears with his hands, getting them wet before remembering the box of tissues on the table. As he reached for one, Sophia grabbed his hand, her grip desperate. "You won't leave me, will you?" Her voice was choked with sobs. "Like you promised before, you'll never, ever leave me, right?" Her hand was shaking. Her heart was shaking. Alex could feel the crushing weight of her insecurity. "Of course not," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "My Sophie is the best thing that ever happened to me. How could I ever leave you?" She threw her arms around him, burying her face in his chest. "I'll never drug you again, I swear. I'll fix all my bad habits. Anything that bothers you, anything you don't like, I'll change it all." Her vulnerability broke his heart. "Sophie, you just have to be yourself. I love all of you, the good parts and the bad. I don't need you to change a single thing for me." She looked up, tears clinging to her eyelashes. "Really?" He leaned down and kissed the tears from her eyes. "Of course." She pressed her face back into his chest, her tears soaking his shirt. His embrace was broad and strong, a sanctuary big enough to hold her lonely, fractured soul. He was her reason for living, the pillar that held up her entire world. Suddenly, she realized how wrong she had been. She was so afraid of losing him, so terrified of him getting hurt or upset, that she tried to shield him from everything. But he wasn't a fragile doll. He was her power source, the one whose embrace could recharge her depleted spirit and make her whole again. To see him as weak was just another form of insult. She hugged him tighter. "I'm sorry, husband. I was so wrong." "So, your mother is with your uncle's son?" Alex asked later, trying to piece it all together. "Yes." He didn't confirm it directly, but it doesn't matter. "I'm sure of it." Alex knew Sophia had been taken in by her uncle after running away. From the way she spoke of him, it was clear she held him in high regard. And her uncle's son, that would make him her cousin, right? Probably an older cousin, since not many people in their late teens had the kind of power Sophia wielded. It was also obvious she didn't like him. She wouldn't refer to him so clinically as my uncle's son otherwise. The idea of this suddenly materialized cousin being mixed up with her supposedly dead mother felt chaotic and wrong. Sophia had always been a solitary figure. She was estranged from her half-brothers, Ethan and Caleb Harlan. Her mother, father, grandmother, and uncle were figures from stories, not real people in her life. Now, a cousin had appeared out of nowhere, and it seemed her mother was about to make a reappearance as well. Alex felt a strange sense of unease. He was used to a Sophia who, in a way, belonged only to him. He felt a surge of possessiveness, a fear that these long-lost relatives would try to take her away from him. "Your cousin, he's not my cousin," Sophia corrected him firmly. "I called his father uncle, but he's not my cousin." Alex was surprised. "So, a younger cousin?" Before he could ask, she clarified, "My uncle wasn't my grandmother's biological son. My grandmother was a kind woman. She took him in for a few years when he had nowhere else to go, and he was always grateful to her. That was why, when his grandmother sensed her time was running out, she had entrusted the young, vulnerable Sophia to Edward Vance. Edward had told her to call him uncle, but he had never told her to call Preston her cousin. That arrogant waste of space, who was obsessed with power but couldn't even win a fight against her, wasn't worthy of being called her brother. A chill ran down Alex's spine. Sophia's uncle's son was a megalomaniac with ambitions of world domination, but lacked the skills to achieve it on his own. So, he wanted to recruit Sophia, the business prodigy, to his cause. And when he discovered that his ideal partner was more interested in being in love than in building an empire, he had become enraged. Alex knew that anyone who could force Sophia to sneak out in the middle of the night was a serious threat. A knot of anxiety tightened in his chest, but he forced himself to hide it. Sophia had gone to such lengths to keep this from him precisely because she didn't want him to worry. He feigned nonchalance, resting his chin on her shoulder as he held her. "The guy sounds like he's punching way above his weight," he said with a light laugh. "So what's the plan? How are you going to deal with him?" Alex's heart was pounding, especially after learning that this uncle's son wanted Sophia to leave him. He wanted to find the arrogant bastard and beat him to a pulp. He and Sophia were meant to be together forever. No one had the right to interfere. But this wasn't just anyone. Sophia's uncle had been a formidable figure, the head of a massive shadow organization. After his death, his son had inherited everything, the wealth and the power. Sophia had her own resources, a small branch of that same organization gifted to her by her uncle, but how could that compare to the main headquarters? This man, with no blood relation to her, wanted Sophia to help him achieve his insane ambitions. Why would he insist she leave Alex? The most logical and terrifying reason was that he wanted to bind her to him permanently. A partnership, perhaps sealed by marriage. The thought of Sophia in another man's arms sent a wave of panic through him. He had a sudden, visceral urge to find an iron chain and lock her to his side forever. Alex recoiled, horrified by his own thoughts. He, who had been raised in a traditional home with a strong moral compass, was having the same dark, possessive ideas that had driven Sophia to imprison him in their past life. Everyone has a dark side. Some people just think about it. Others have the means to act on it. Suddenly, he understood her a little better. Sophia was too proud to bow to this man's threats. Alex worried she would be a bull charging at a brick wall, ending up broken and bruised. He was certain that at this point in his previous life, she had never faced a challenge this great. But his rebirth, his different choices, could have changed the fates of those around him, especially Sophia's. The girl in his arms stared blankly into the distance. Alex's heart clenched. Had this problem truly stumped her? The agony of being unable to help her was unbearable. He must be heartbroken. "Wherever he is," Sophia murmured. She sighed. Uncle Edward washed his hands of that life long ago. He never wanted his only son to live on the knife's edge, as he had. He was extremely strict with him, kept him away from all of it. But a father knows his son. Before he died, he predicted Preston would end up like this. Alex blinked. "Preston Vance? You know him?" Sophia twisted around in his arms to look at him. His face was buried in the crook of her neck, and as she turned, their cheeks brushed against each other. The faint slide of her skin against his sent a pleasant shiver through him. Her warm breath caressed his face like a soft, lingering kiss. The air was filled with her intoxicating scent. Before he could react, her arms were around his neck. Overcome by the moment, Alex forgot his surprise and kissed her. They slept in the same bed every night, but no one would believe how chaste their relationship was. He had never pushed her, always pulling back before things could escalate. He was nearly 19, but with the mind of a man in his 30s. Sophia was still so young, a flower yet to fully bloom. In some ways, she was still incredibly innocent. Her kisses, her desire to share a bed. It was all born from a deep need for closeness, not from primal lust. He couldn't take advantage of her, not until she was ready. So this kiss was pure, clean, and free of desire. A kiss meant to soothe their troubled souls. When they broke apart, Sophia rested her forehead against his. You didn't answer my question, husband. How do you know Preston Vance? Alex didn't know the uncle's son, but he did know the name Preston Vance. It was another memory from his past life. There could be more than one person with that name, of course, but he only knew of one, and he suspected it was the same man now causing trouble for Sophia. Only the Preston Vance from his past life, the one who later caused massive turmoil both at home and abroad, would have the power to challenge her. He kept his face neutral. Is he about 6 feet tall? Maybe a little more? Decently good looking? Sophia's eyes widened in shock. You really do know him. How? She suddenly gasped, her expression turning to one of alarm. Did he find you? Did he talk to you? Did he do anything to you? That confirmed it. Alex had intentionally used that description to test his theory. He feigned surprise. No, Sophie. The Preston I knew was just an older guy I met at the park once. It couldn't be the same person, could it? He didn't seem like that kind of guy. Sophia looked thoughtful. When did you meet this Preston? I don't really remember. I think I was in elementary school, and he was already over 6 feet tall back then. Yeah. Sophia let out a huge sigh of relief. It's not the same person. It was a false alarm. She had been too anxious. There was no way Preston could get to Alex without her knowing. The moment Alex left the estate, Mr. Lowe and his team were watching him, protecting him from the shadows. She had lost him once. The fear of it happening again was a constant, gnawing anxiety. She couldn't bear the thought of a future without him. He had to be protected at all times, from every possible danger, no matter how small the probability. Only then could she feel at ease. Uncle Edward never wanted him to be some great man. She continued, her voice softer now. He would have been happy if Preston just lived like any other trust fund kid, wasting his life on pleasure. He left him more than enough money to last a lifetime. But Preston had other ideas. He completely ignored his father's wishes. Sophia fell silent. Alex held her, gently nuzzling her cheek, trying to comfort her. He felt a sense of awe. How had he, of all people, become her light? How was he the one who could give her strength when she needed it most? Sophie, no matter what you're facing, I'll be here with you. He was about to say the words aloud when he heard her whisper, before Uncle died, he left me with a few last words. Alex instinctively held his breath. Whatever Edward Vance had said had to be important. He told me that if Preston ever went down the wrong path, I should keep my distance from him. Your uncle was a good man, Alex said, filled with gratitude. Sophia let out a soft laugh. Husband, you're so naive. In his own words, if he were a good man, he would have died 1,000 times over. Alex didn't know whether to laugh or cry. They were the same age, but in her eyes, he was the childish one. As long as he was good to you, he's a good man in my book. Well then, your moral compass is seriously skewed, she teased, tightening her arms around his neck and stealing another kiss. A deliberate kiss felt entirely different from a stolen one. A giddy sense of triumph filled her. But he was very good to me, she admitted, a hint of sadness in her voice. He also said, if Preston ever dared to bother me, I should take him out. Alex froze. A dying man had told his non-biological niece to kill his own son. Talk about disowning someone. He just hoped take him out wasn't meant literally. As capable as Sophia was, this was a society of laws. He wanted to live with her in the sunlight, not hide with her in the shadows. Sophia stared at him, her eyes dark and unreadable, as if she were testing him. A sudden chill went through Alex. You should know by now, husband, she said, her voice unervingly calm. I'm not exactly a good person. His heart dropped. Sometime during their conversation, she had unwound her arms from his neck and moved to the sofa, picking up a cup of lukewarm coffee. She normally didn't drink coffee, unless she needed a jolt of caffeine, and then it was always black. She took a slow sip, the bitter taste flooding her senses. She fought to keep her hand from shaking as she smiled at a stunned Alex. He met her half-smiling eyes and swallowed hard. He belatedly realized his hands and feet had gone ice-cold. Sophie, don't joke like that. Her smile widened. I'm not joking. You're just too innocent, husband. You need to remember that I'm not like you. While you were growing up loved and cared for, I was being starved for not meeting a woman's expectations, thrown away like trash to that old man, running for my life before my uncle finally took me in. Stop it, Alex cried out, his heart feeling like it was splitting in two. Sophia sighed. Are you feeling sorry for me? I'm not telling you this for your pity. I'm telling you this so you understand that someone who grew up in an environment like that can't possibly have a healthy sense of morality. I said, stop it. Alex's breathing grew ragged. She was unmoved. Yesterday, when you were out with Jake and the others, Preston's men were watching you. Alex froze. No wonder he'd felt so uneasy that day. Danger had been close. They used a little kid to send a paper airplane to your table. It had my name on it. The waitress eventually cleared it away as trash. He stared at her in shock. Preston knows how well I have you protected. He can't get to you directly, so he's trying to pass you messages. Alex was stunned. He remembered seeing the character for her name on the plane. He admitted he'd felt a strange compulsion to open it, to see what else was written inside. But he never imagined it had been deliberately sent to him. Sophia's gaze was locked on him, scrutinizing his every reaction. Aren't you curious what he wrote on it, husband? Of course he was, but he knew it would be nothing good. It would be some lie, some poison meant to drive a wedge between them. Whether it was telling her to leave him or him to leave her, the result was the same for Preston. He and Sophia had sworn to be together for eternity. The sky could fall, and it wouldn't be enough to separate them, let alone a few suspicious words on a piece of paper. I wouldn't believe a word of it, Alex said, his voice firm. He reached out, grabbed her hand, and pulled her back into his arms, holding her tight. Sophie, we'll face this together. No matter what happens, I'll always be by your side. A choked sob escaped her. Why did she love him so much it drove her mad? How could she not, when he was this good? Still, she had to ask. Her voice was deceptively casual. And what if he told you I was a killer? A butcher with blood on her hands? Would you still feel the same? She felt his body go rigid in her arms. A wave of panic and grief washed over her. Husband, it wasn't just his hands and feet that were cold now. A bone-deep chill spread through his entire body. His Sophie. He had never, ever considered that. But in their past life, she had been willing to imprison him to keep him by her side. So, the idea that she might use extreme measures to achieve other goals. It wasn't impossible. Pain, sharp and suffocating, seized his chest. His morals were black and white. You didn't break the law. The thought of his pure, perfect Sophia with blood on her hands was unimaginable. She was so kind, so compassionate. She had rescued people like Mr. Lowe and Charles from their own personal hells and given them lives of dignity. Call me a hypocrite, he thought desperately. But if she did have blood on her hands, it must have been in self-defense. It couldn't have been her choice. Sometimes you just had to believe in fate. Being entangled with Sophia Reed, being loved by her, and finally loving her in return. It was Alex Turner's destiny, one he could never escape. They were bound together, for this life and every life to come. If she was truly damned, destined for hell, then he would go with her. Don't worry about me, husband. I remember every word Uncle taught me. I have never done anything to violate my conscience. I can give you my word on that. Though, she admitted to herself, in the darker corners of her possessive heart, she'd certainly had some crazy thoughts, like chaining up her disobedient husband against his will, or tearing apart the bastards who looked down on him. But her husband was too good. He'd been so compliant from the start. He'd never given her a reason to challenge the law. As for those other idiots, they weren't worth getting her hands dirty for, weren't worth making her unworthy of the best man in the world. Alex let out a long, shuddering breath. In the span of a few minutes, he had gone from preparing to descend into a dark abyss with Sophia to being back in the warm, bright sun. Sophia, who had barely slept, finally drifted off in his arms. He held her tenderly for a long time before gently laying her down on the bed, his hand stroking her face. Her eyes fluttered open, her voice soft and sleepy. Husband, are you going to campus? Yeah. Should I take the day off and stay with you? He hadn't slept well either, worried and unsettled by her absence. Of course, that wasn't a good excuse to skip class, but he felt like she needed him right now. He was seriously considering taking an extended leave of absence. Graduating from college was a nice bonus for him, not a necessity. If Sophia asked him to drop out, he'd do it in a heartbeat. No, I don't want to be the thing that holds you back from becoming even more amazing, she murmured. Go to school. I'll be here waiting for you when you get back. All right. She closed her eyes, her lips puckering slightly. Alex chuckled and, as she wished, leaned down to give her a soft kiss before leaving. Downstairs, he saw Charles. Sophia's asleep. Charles nodded. Mr. Lowe is waiting for you outside. After Alex left, Charles returned a call he'd received earlier. I'm sorry, Miss Sophia is unavailable. Perhaps you could try another time. The morning flew by. As noon approached, Alex walked through the crowded campus, for the first time feeling no anticipation for lunch at the private kitchen. Usually, Sophia would be waiting for him there, or he for her. Being waited for and waiting for someone could both be sweet experiences. But no one was waiting for him today, and he wouldn't be waiting for Sophia. He'd had a light class schedule, leaving the house around 9:30. It wasn't even noon yet. She was definitely still asleep. He had called Mrs. Peterson earlier to tell her not to bother with lunch, to give herself and the chef the day off. She'd replied that the ingredients were already bought. "You guys go ahead and eat it," he told her. He planned to grab a bite at the campus dining hall for a change. He hadn't eaten there once since the semester started. As he walked alone toward the hall, he felt several pairs of eyes on him. He was naturally handsome, and the quiet intensity he'd gained from his rebirth, combined with his expensive designer clothes, made him stand out. He was a striking figure wherever he went. One girl, noticing his glance, boldly walked up to him. "Alex, I've never seen you in the dining hall before. Do you usually eat off campus?" Alex sighed internally. He should have just gone to the private kitchen. He had no interest in attracting this kind of attention. He gave the girl, whose eyes were practically sparkling with interest, a curt "yeah," and nothing more. Disappointed by his coldness, the girl wisely took the hint and backed off. "He's so cold," she muttered to her roommate. "Definitely a tough one to get." "Wait, the super hot guy you've been talking about all semester is Alex Turner from computer science," her roommate asked, shocked. "Yeah, what about it? If I'd known it was him, I would have told you to give up weeks ago." "What? You know Jessica Vance, right? She set her sights on him on the first day of orientation. Bragged to her roommates that she was going to make him fall for her. He wouldn't even give her the time of day. Isn't Jessica with the youngest son from Titan Development now? That's the other gossip I was going to tell you. Have you noticed you haven't seen that guy around lately? He took a leave of absence. So did Jessica." "No way. Are they that serious already? Get your mind out of the gutter. I heard, and this is from a reliable source, that Mason Gao pissed off Alex Turner and got beaten up. He's in the hospital." "Whoa. So Alex is an even bigger deal than Mason Gao." The two girls whispered, glancing nervously at the tall figure walking ahead of them. Suddenly, he stopped, pulling out his phone. He turned, a surprised, brilliant smile lighting up his face as he walked back in their direction. All his coldness had vanished, replaced by a breathtaking warmth. "Why didn't you sleep in?" he said into the phone. "I thought you weren't coming, so I was going to eat here." Okay, I'm on my way." He strode past them, and as he did, they heard him say, in a voice dripping with adoration, "Love you." Even knowing it wasn't meant for them, the words sent a shiver down their spines. "Wow, he's so sweet," the first girl sighed. "Yeah, but not to us. I can't believe he has a girlfriend. I thought a guy that cold was destined to be alone forever. If a guy like that ends up alone, what hope is there for the rest of us?" Alex's leisurely pace was gone, replaced by a sense of urgency. His Sophie was waiting for him at the private kitchen. Even exhausted and sleep-deprived, she had still come to have lunch with him. "I'm sorry, sir. This is a private kitchen. We're not open to the public." Mrs. Peterson was exasperated. Couldn't this man read the large sign on the door that said, "Private residence, not a business"? Trevor Gao waved a dismissive hand. "I'm not here to eat. I'd like to have a word with the owner." Mrs. Peterson eyed him warily and flatly refused. Trevor frowned. He hadn't expected the owner to be so arrogant as to refuse even to see him. Did that mean they had something to hide? Beating his brother so badly he was still hospitalized. Even as a joke, it had gone too far. After rushing back to deal with urgent business, Trevor had returned immediately to check on his brother and, more importantly, to salvage the partnership with the Harlan family. Hearing the commotion, Sophia put down her phone and walked impatiently to the door. Her memory was excellent. She recognized Trevor Gao immediately. Trevor was in the middle of trying to reason with Mrs. Peterson when he froze, his eyes fixed on the figure standing behind her. The moment he met her cold, indifferent gaze, he forgot how to breathe. "Can I help you?" Sophia asked, her expression blank. The heir apparent of Titan Development, a man groomed for power, suddenly couldn't form a coherent sentence. If you have no business here, get lost." Her voice was like ice. She glanced past him, a flicker of disappointment crossing her face when she didn't see Alex. But she had just called him. The campus was large. It would take him at least 10 minutes to walk over from the dining hall. She turned and went back inside. Mrs. Peterson slammed the door shut, muttering, "Miss Sophia, that man looked sharp, but he didn't seem very bright, did he?" He'd seemed normal enough at first, but the moment she appeared, he could barely speak. It wasn't that Trevor wasn't bright. His entire world had just been turned upside down. As a wealthy playboy, he'd seen every type of woman imaginable. Innocent, seductive, cute, elegant. But he had never encountered anyone like the girl he had just seen. His heart was in turmoil. The business deal with Harlan Corp suddenly felt trivial. Ethan's eyes darkened. "Who told you this?" It couldn't have been anyone from the family. They were united in their desire to keep the scandal buried. It wouldn't have been Sophia either. She had promised their grandfather, and she was a woman of her word. For some reason, Ethan just knew she wouldn't go back on it, and her people were too loyal to disobey her orders. A knowing smile played on Trevor's lips. I hear she's taken a liking to a freshman at Lakeview University, and my brother just so happened to have a run-in with him, which is why he's in the hospital. A deep jealousy for this boy he never met churned in his gut. That kid must think he can do whatever he wants, with Miss Reed spoiling him like that. As Alex approached, he saw a man in a tailored suit talking on the phone as he walked toward a luxury car parked on the street. He was too far away for Alex to get a clear look at his face, but he noticed the man glance back toward the private kitchen one last time before getting in the car. Was someone just here? Alex asked the moment he walked in. Sophia, who had been waiting just inside, launched herself on his back like a koala, wrapping her arms around his neck and her legs around his waist. Alex instinctively bent forward, hooking his hands under her thighs to hoist her up more securely as he walked toward the dining area. A wide, happy grin spread across Sophia's face. She loved it when he indulged her like this. It was Trevor Gow. Alex paused. Trevor. So that well-dressed man was Trevor Gow. What did he want? Husband, Sophia said, a teasing note in her voice. Why do I get the feeling you're very interested in this Trevor Gow? Alex froze. Her intuition was terrifyingly sharp. Given Trevor's intense obsession with Sophia in his past life, he did have a certain morbid curiosity about the man. I was just worried he was here to cause trouble over his brother, he said, which wasn't entirely a lie. With me here, you don't have to worry about a thing. Sophia dismissed the thought entirely. If she wasn't concerned about a man like Preston Vance, the head of a feared global crime syndicate, she certainly wasn't going to lose sleep over the son of a businessman. Preston was right. Edward Vance had valued her highly. So highly that he had given her permission to eliminate his own son if he stepped too far out of line. A clear sign that, despite appearances, Sophia had the power to contend with him. Dealing with Preston would require some effort, of course. What Sophia couldn't possibly know was that her darling husband, upon learning of Preston's existence, had already identified his fatal weakness. But the source of his information was impossible to explain, so he couldn't simply tell her. In his past life, the dismantling of a dark organization with a global reach had made international headlines. A joint task force of law enforcement from several countries had spent 2 months hunting down the last fugitive leader. In the end, the cornered crime boss was taken out by a sniper. That man had been Preston Vance. In the following weeks, the full extent of his criminal activities was laid bare to the public. 2 months after Preston's death, as Alex was leaving a celebration for the task force, Sophia had found him. Alex couldn't help but wonder, had Sophia played a role in Preston's downfall? No one could give him an answer, but he had a gut feeling that she had. I'm sorry, Mr. Gow, but I have to tell you again, with regret, that the partnership cannot move forward. In the general manager's office at Harlan Corp headquarters, Ethan Harlan delivered the news to Trevor Gow with a grave expression. This confirmed it. No matter what the Gow family did, the situation was irreversible. They had likely already prepared for the worst, because Trevor took the news calmly. He simply stared at Ethan for a long moment before asking a startling question. Ethan, I'd like to know the real reason Miss Reed terminated our partnership. Ethan, usually unflappable, was visibly shocked. Trevor knew about Sophia. He even knew her real name and her status within the Harlan family. Their family's dirtiest secret was out. I met her today, Trevor said calmly. Of course, when he'd first seen the girl with the unique aura, he hadn't connected her to the Harlans at all. She didn't resemble the Harlan brothers in the slightest. It was only after he left, on his way to the hospital to see his brother, that he'd been approached by a woman. A woman who told him a shocking secret about the Harlan family. That years ago, the patriarch had brought home an illegitimate daughter with the intention of using her in a strategic marriage, likely to one of the Gow brothers. And he, Trevor, had been the most probable candidate. The memory of Sophia's cold, dismissive, even disgusted gaze sent a thrill through him. He had only met her once, but every other woman he had ever known now seemed pale and insignificant in comparison. The business deal with Harlan Corp suddenly felt trivial. Ethan's eyes darkened. Who told you this? It couldn't have been anyone from the family. They were united in their desire to keep the scandal buried. It wouldn't have been Sophia either. She had promised their grandfather, and she was a woman of her word. For some reason, Ethan just knew she wouldn't go back on it, and her people were too loyal to disobey her orders. A knowing smile played on Trevor's lips. I hear she's taken a liking to a freshman at Lakeview University, and my brother just so happened to have a run-in with him, which is why he's in the hospital. A deep jealousy for this boy he never met churned in his gut. That kid must think he can do whatever he wants, with Miss Reed spoiling him like that. A sudden realization struck Ethan. Could it be Alex Turner? Ethan Harlan was stunned. Alex Turner was the one who had aired his family's dirty laundry? But then he reconsidered. The person who had agreed to maintain the Harlan family's ridiculous charade of respectability was Sophia, not Alex. What Ethan found strange was why he hadn't even considered Alex in the first place. Maybe, subconsciously, he saw Alex and Sophia as a single entity. An agreement Sophia made was one Alex would honor. Wait a minute. Did that mean that he, the brother she refused to acknowledge, had already accepted Alex as his brother-in-law? The laughable part was that his acceptance meant absolutely nothing. Trevor Gow sat down without invitation, tapping a finger on the polished surface of the desk. A smirk played on his lips. I never would have guessed. The great Victor Harlan, a supposed paragon of virtue, has a secret daughter running his empire? Ethan remained silent. His father had already admitted to being a hypocrite. There was nothing left for him to defend. Since your sister, CEO Reed, is running Harlan Corp now, why don't you formally introduce me? It would make our future business dealings much more efficient if I could speak to her directly, cutting out the middleman. When Trevor had first heard the truth, he had been shocked, his initial reaction one of disbelief. Even before coming to see Ethan, he'd been skeptical. It was difficult enough to run a massive, publicly traded company. But a girl who looked no older than 17 or 18 had single-handedly dragged Harlan Corp back from the brink of bankruptcy and, in just 2 short years, propelled it past his own family's company with unstoppable momentum. Was that something an ordinary person could do? She wasn't ordinary. She was a genius. It was absurd. How many geniuses could there possibly be in the world? Most were just overblown reputations created to fool the public. But Ethan's reaction told him everything. It was all true. An image of Sophia's cold eyes flashed in Trevor's mind, and a shiver ran through him. Thinking back on all the women he had dated over the years, he suddenly found them bland, boring, even pathetic. He had wasted his precious time on such insipid creatures. It was unforgivable. Suddenly, his life had a new, unwavering, and incandescent purpose. That girl. While Trevor's blood boiled with this newfound ambition, Ethan slowly recovered from shock, shame, and anger of having his family's secrets exposed. He was a man. He understood other men, even if he and Trevor were nothing alike. His voice was low and calm. Forget you. Even if your father came here in person, he might not get a meeting with CEO Reed. He paused. And since we're being friendly, a little word of advice. Our 2 companies will likely not be collaborating again. He leaned forward slightly, adopting the tone of a concerned older brother. And one more thing. Don't mess with her. You'll regret it. Badly. As he said the last words, Ethan couldn't help but feel a twinge of pity, mixed with a healthy dose of schadenfreude. He had a feeling Trevor was already infatuated. What a tragedy in the making. Trevor paused, then waved a dismissive hand. Isn't it a bit early to be making those kinds of predictions, Ethan? Ethan just shook his head. Did you not see what happened to your brother, Mason? I'm not him, Trevor shot back. Fine. Ethan shrugged, his point made. Success is about taking risks. It's too soon to say whether our companies have a future together. Just introduce me to CEO Reed, and I'll be in your debt. Ethan picked up a folder, a scornful smile on his face. Instead of coming to me, you'd have better luck with whoever leaked our family secrets to you in the first place. After all, I'm just the unfortunate brother she refuses to acknowledge. Surely you understand. It wasn't Alex, Ethan thought. He'd been careless, jumping to conclusions based on Trevor's bait. He pictured Alex's cool, detached demeanor. He and Sophia were similar in that way. He wasn't sure if she had influenced him or if he'd always been like that. A guy that aloof and quiet, who barely bothered with his own family, wouldn't waste time gossiping with Trevor Gow. It made no sense. So who was it? Come on, Ethan, Trevor wheedled. Don't be so quick to refuse. You'll hurt my feelings. Why don't you think it over? Without a word, Ethan tossed a folder across the desk. Confused, Trevor opened it and began to flip through the pages. The color drained from his face. Sorry, Mr. Gow, Ethan said, his voice flat. I'm a very busy man. Trevor stumbled out of the office, his face ashen. The folder Ethan had given him contained evidence of the Gow family's illegal business practices over the past 2 years. It also detailed what Mason was really up to overseas. Sophia had her assistant deliver it that morning. It seemed she had anticipated the Gow family would cause trouble and had prepared a way to shut them up in advance. Ethan stared out the window, his brow furrowed. As slow as he was, he could sense something was wrong. Whoever was using Mason and Trevor as pawns to stir up trouble between the Harlans and Alex. Were they targeting Alex, or were they targeting Sophia? The answer was obvious. Before meeting Sophia, Alex was just an ordinary student with a simple background, who, other than someone obsessed with Sophia, would waste so much energy on him. Was this an opportunity for the Harlans, or a disaster? He found he no longer had the will to fight. He had grown accustomed to the new reality. To be more precise, he was worried about the girl, even though she couldn't care less about his concern. Early Saturday morning, a fleet of more than a dozen supercars pulled up brazenly in front of Sophia's residence. The occasional passerby froze, stunned by the ostentatious display of wealth. Tall, broad-shouldered bodyguards got out first, respectfully opening the door of the lead car. A young man wearing large sunglasses stepped out and stood calmly outside the gate, surveying the surroundings. "TSK," he muttered. "This place is a dump compared to mine. I'll have to buy Joe a new house." After a long wait, someone finally came out to speak with him. It was Charles Harrington, Sophia's most trusted household manager. Charles greeted him with a practiced, deferential bow. "Mr. Vance, what a pleasant surprise. Please forgive us for not being better prepared for your arrival." His eyes flickered over Preston Vance's face. He healed fast. The ghost of Miss Sophia's handprint from last time was completely gone. Preston looked him up and down with an arrogant air. "Where's Joe, old man?" Charles smiled pleasantly. "My apologies, Mr. Vance. Miss Sophia is a late sleeper. She's not up yet." Alex had a particular habit when he slept. It had to be completely dark and silent. The slightest sliver of light would keep him tossing and turning for hours. Sophia was the same. Their bedroom was fitted with double curtains. The first layer, a thick, light-blocking velvet in a soft beige, sealed out the world. The second was a layer of sheer white fabric that, when the blackout curtains were drawn during the day, gave the room a dreamy, ethereal glow. In the dim room, Alex slept soundly, Sophia held tight in his arms. Some people needed to hug a pillow or a stuffed animal to sleep. Alex never had such a quirk before, but after sharing a bed with Sophia, he developed a new habit. He had to be holding her. Nothing else would do. If she wasn't there, it wasn't just his arms that felt empty. His heart did, too. He couldn't sleep at all. It was the same for her. Her insomnia had been crippling, but ever since she'd reunited with Alex, since that first night she'd unscrupulously drugged him just to sleep beside him, she had finally found long overdue peace. The person in his arms stirred. Still half asleep, Alex pulled her closer, his hand patting her back soothingly. Her husband's embrace was too comfortable. Sophia buried her face in his chest, wishing she could stay like this forever. But she couldn't. Alex opened his eyes, confused. Sophia struggled out of his arms and sat cross-legged on the bed, her hair a mess, a dark cloud of sleep-deprived irritation on her face. Alex propped himself up on an elbow as Sophia muttered coldly, "I could just strangle that bastard right now." Alex blinked. What? He had no idea what was happening. Sophia felt a pang of guilt for disturbing his sleep, but she knew he wanted to face things with her. She wouldn't hide this from him. "Preston Vance is here," she explained in a low voice. Alex's body went rigid, suddenly on high alert. That guy had the audacity to just show up at their door. Why hadn't he considered this? Why did he assume this house was an impenetrable fortress? While he was still processing, Sophia spoke in her phone. "Give the phone to him. Tell him to say what he has to say and get it over with." Her first instinct was to ignore her uninvited cousin, but she couldn't. Preston wasn't the patient Ethan Harlan, nor was he the reckless but harmless Caleb. He was a dangerous animal who had tasted blood. Sophia wouldn't leave Charles to face that danger alone. With immense willpower, she pushed herself away from the warmth of Alex's embrace. Outside the main gate, Charles respectfully handed the phone to Preston. "For you, Mr. Vance." Preston stared at the phone. He shows up in person, and instead of welcoming him in, they leave him standing outside? Who else but Sophia would dare? He glanced toward the house, seeing a beautiful 3-story mansion half hidden by lush camphor trees. Which window was hers? Charles held the phone steady, his arm growing sore, but the smile on his face never wavered. Preston looked away from the house with a dismissive snort. "You know, old man," he said, his words laced with meaning, "you've been with Joe for 2 years. Don't pick up her bad habits. I can tolerate her temper, but that doesn't mean I'll tolerate anyone else's." Charles's face was a mask of humility. "Your advice is well taken, sir. I'll be sure to remember it." Preston didn't have Sophia's direct number. He had to go through Charles. The old fox had even dared to give him the runaround on the phone earlier. Preston took the phone, but before he could speak, a cold voice came through. "What are you doing here?" Though he knew she couldn't see him, a smile spread across Preston's face. "What do you think? I came to see you. My uncle told you on his deathbed to leave me alone." "My father did say that, yes. But I'm right outside your door. You're not even going to offer me a glass of water." "Preston, I'm warning you. Don't waste your time on me. Her tone was glacial, leaving no room for argument. If anyone else had spoken to Preston Vance like that, they'd be dead 100 times over. But this was Sophia. And for her, he had endless patience. Because she had earned it. While Sophia dealt with Preston, Alex was thinking. In his past life, after Preston was killed, all of his crimes were exposed. After his death, it was news. Before his death, it was leverage. This gave Alex an opening to strike first. But he had to figure out how to help Sophia deal with Preston while protecting the secret of his reincarnation. That would require careful thought. Fine, I'll go with you. Sophia's words snapped Alex back to the present. Sophie, where are you going with him? He asked, alarmed. Sophia looked at him, her expression softening. It's the anniversary of my uncle's death. She paused, then murmured, I haven't visited him once since he passed. He used to say that when you're dead, you're dead. He hated formalities. But I suddenly really want to see him. To tell him, I'm making my move. Her tone was so light, so casual, it was as if she were saying she wanted steak for dinner. Alex got out of bed and started dressing. I'm coming with you. In the end, Alex didn't go. Sophia's refusal was calm and logical. Preston was a lunatic. He already resented Alex's existence. Seeing him would only provoke the madman. Preston needed something from Sophia, so for now, he wouldn't dare harm her. And besides, Sophia was no damsel in distress. Preston might not even have the ability to hurt her if he tried. She promised Alex she would be back by 6 in the evening at the latest. Alex's expression was grim. You promise? It was ironic. Not long ago, Alex had needed Sophia's permission to leave the house and had to be back by her designated time. Now the tables had turned. It was Sophia reporting her plans to him, promising to be home by a certain hour. Was this what it felt like to be on the other side of the equation? He didn't feel like celebrating. He didn't feel happy at all. Seeing his gloom, Sophia reached out and gently pinched his cheek. I'll be fine, husband. I'm not exactly helpless, you know. Alex laid out 3 conditions. First, she had to text him every hour, anything at all, just to prove she was safe and free. Second, she had to keep her phone on and answer whenever he called, within 6 rings. Third, she had to keep her promise and be back by 6 o'clock. Otherwise, he'd give her the silent treatment. It was such a childish punishment. But for Sophia, it held a power no one else could imagine. After she left, Alex didn't stay idle. He thought, piecing things together. Then, he changed into a comfortable black sweatsuit and got to work. Alex's memory was sharp. Preston Vance's case had been so massive that everyone had been talking about it. So Alex knew every detail of his criminal life. To put it bluntly, in Alex's mind, Preston was an open book. It was one of the perks of being reincarnated. Ever since confirming Preston's identity, Alex had been mulling over how to use this hidden knowledge to his advantage. He mentally reviewed Preston's entire rap sheet, mapping out a rough strategy. Preston had a capable right-hand man named Liam Carter, who had done a lot of dirty work for him. Unquestionably, all of it was unforgivable. Liam was so loyal he would have died for Preston without a second thought. Yet, in the end, that same loyal man died a miserable, hate-filled death at Preston's own hands. It was a tragedy. Alex decided to find him. Not to save him, of course. In this timeline, Liam had already done too many terrible things. There was no turning back for him. Alex chose him as a starting point mainly because Liam was here in Seattle, which made him an easy target. Alex was going to fight fire with fire, driving a wedge between him and Preston. He also knew that whenever he went out, Arthur Lowe not only followed for protection, but also ran background checks on everyone Alex interacted with to eliminate any potential threats. Sophia spared no expense when it came to his safety. This invisible shield she had built around him was ever present, making him wonder with a wry smile if he was really as fragile as glass. This time, he could use that to his advantage. He would push Liam Carter into Sophia's line of sight, guiding her to investigate him and speeding up the process of taking Preston down. This was Plan A. If it failed, he had a Plan B. If that failed, he had a messy Plan C and a final last-ditch Plan D. It was best if he could keep the secret of his reincarnation. He really didn't want Sophia questioning him about his past life. He was a terrible liar and didn't want her to know how things were for them before. Knowing her, she wouldn't be able to handle it. Still, her safety was more important than his secret. Admitting he was reincarnated was Plan D, to be used only if all else failed. Plan C was to reveal Preston's secrets and attribute the information to something mystical, like a dream. Whether the brilliant Sophia would believe him was another matter entirely. He hoped he wouldn't have to resort to that. As for Plan B, well, he'd focus on executing Plan A first. Just as he was about to head out, Jake Ramirez called. Hearing that Sophia was out and Alex was going somewhere, Jake excitedly asked to tag along. Alex was about to refuse, but then he reconsidered. He wasn't storming a fortress. The man he was going to meet was cunning and dangerous, but he was also calculating and had his own attachments. He wasn't some madman attacking people at random. There wouldn't be any danger. He agreed. But not even half an hour later, the guy was already awkwardly asking Alex when they were heading back. Alex fought the urge to smack him. "We just got here. What's the rush?" Jake stammered, unable to come up with an excuse. Alex glanced at his phone, which he hadn't put in his pocket yet. Simon Shaw had just called, sheepishly asking if he wanted some homemade pickles his sister had made. She'd made 2 jars, one for Jake's family and one for him, and was about to drop them off at the market. The call had ended less than 2 minutes ago, and now Jake was antsy, his desire to leave practically written on his face. It definitely wasn't because of Simon. Could it be Simon's sister? Was Jake interested in her? Unsure, Alex decided to test the waters with a joke. He clutched his chest, staggered back a step, and delivered a horribly over-the-top performance of a heartbroken man. "You player." Jake just stared at him. Alex sighed dramatically. "Out with the old, in with the new. I see how it is." He waved a dismissive hand. "Go on, get back to your new friend. And here I thought our friendship could withstand anything. Was introducing you to Simon a mistake? Never mind, go on. I'll be fine on my own." Jake was mortified. He rushed after Alex, stammering, "What the hell are you talking about, man? It's not like that. I just remembered you're a taken man now. You can't be running around wild like us single guys. What if your girlfriend thinks I'm a bad influence and comes after me? I like to live a few more years, see my parents in an old age." Alex kept walking, unfazed. "Fine. I'll go home and tell Sophie you called her an unreasonable tyrant." "When did I say that?" Jake yelped. "You can't just make stuff up." Alex was enjoying this. "Okay, then I'll tell her you said her husband makes stuff up." Jake was speechless. Alex stopped in front of a small convenience store and grinned at him. "All right, if you don't want me to talk nonsense to Sophie, how about you tell me this? How much older is Simon's sister than him?" 3 years, Jake answered without thinking. Alex chuckled to himself. "Nice, he's already got the details." He mused aloud. 3 years is good. A woman 3 years older is a classic. Jake looked horrified. "Dude, have you lost your mind? They're brother and sister. You can't say stuff like that." Alex almost choked on his own spit. Jake's mind. After a moment, he realized his comment could have been misinterpreted, though normally no one would jump to that conclusion. He was impressed. "You're the one who's lost his mind." "That's not what I meant. They were the same age." Simon's sister being 3 years older than Simon meant she was 3 years older than Jake, too. Then what was that about a classic? "Wait, does she have a boyfriend?" Jake asked, alarmed. Alex wanted to keep teasing him, but seeing the panic in his eyes, he took pity. "How would I know? If you'd asked if Simon had a girlfriend, I could answer that. So why did you say it?" "I was talking about you, genius." Jake froze. His face turned a shade of red that spread visibly down his neck. Alex shook his head, utterly defeated by his friend. He'd only been out for half an hour, and Jake was already. Now that his suspicion was confirmed, Alex was shocked. The chain reaction he'd set off by introducing Simon to Jake's family market had gone far beyond his expectations. He thought to himself that if he had inadvertently helped Jake find a girlfriend, it would be an unexpected but welcome outcome. It made him curious about Simon's sister, whom he had yet to meet. Still, for a guy who was usually so loud and carefree, Jake was surprisingly innocent when it came to romance. Seeing Alex trying to hold back a laugh, Jake sidled up to him, embarrassed but earnest. "Hey man," he asked sheepishly, "what do you think my chances are with Simon's sister?" "I haven't even met her, so I can't say," Alex replied. "But is she really pretty?" Jake let out a goofy chuckle. "Oh, yeah, definitely. But I'm not that shallow. I mean, she's just really gentle and kind and nice." "I'm being serious." Alex stopped laughing. "I don't know why, but whenever I see her, my heart starts pounding like crazy. I just want to be near her, see her smile, hear her talk. I want to protect her. I've never felt this way before. Not even with that pick-me girl who is after you." Is this love, man? Is this how you feel about your girlfriend?" Jake asked, seeking genuine advice. Alex considered it seriously, but before he could answer, Jake clicked his tongue. "Oh, right, I forgot. Your girlfriend is a powerful heiress. If anything, she's the one protecting you." "No," Alex said, offering his own perspective. "Wanting to protect someone comes from the heart. It has nothing to do with how strong you are. I want to protect her, to build a world for her, where she never has to worry, where she can always be happy. Loving someone means wanting to give them every beautiful thing you possibly can. Isn't that exactly how Sophia was with him?" He sighed. It hadn't been that long, but he already missed her. It pained him to know that he wasn't strong enough yet, that she still had to face people and things she despised. For Sophia, and for their future, he hoped today would go smoothly. Although Jake was showing signs of ditching his friend for a girl, Alex, being self-aware, realized he wasn't much different. He figured they were even. It was just after 10 in the morning, and the electronics district wasn't crowded. With Labor Day approaching, stores had put up banners with slogans like Labor Day Sale and limited time deals. For most people, the best part of any holiday was the time off work. The actual meaning was often overlooked. Labor Day, a long weekend, family. Alex felt a quiet sense of anticipation. He knew that his parents had extended their trip on Sophia's suggestion. She thought of every little detail when it came to him. Once he had gotten over his initial worry, he realized Sophia had arranged everything perfectly. His parents would be back before the holiday, and they would all be together. "All right, you head back," Alex told Jake. "I'm just going to buy this camera, and then I'll go home." He pointed to a digital camera in a brightly lit glass case. "Excuse me," he said to the owner, a man with a stylish mustache and a small ponytail. "Can I see this one?" Jake seemed to feel guilty for abandoning his friend. He scratched his head. "Sorry, man. I'll make it up to you next time." Alex took the camera from the owner and shot Jake a teasing grin. "Sure. When you win the girl over, just give me some extra wedding candy. Tell me, are you regretting not studying harder now? If you'd gotten into Lakeview, you'd have way more chances to see her. What's the point of regretting it now? There's no magic pill for that." Jake lamented as he rushed off. Alex turned his attention back to the camera. When he looked up, he saw the mustached owner looking at him, seemingly hesitant to speak. Alex offered him a slight smile. The owner returned it. His artistic style gave him an air that was both scholarly and a little dangerous. "You're a student at Lakeview?" the man asked. Alex nodded calmly. Do you know Eva Chun?" Alex suppressed a surge of triumph. Everything was going according to plan. The artsy-looking owner was the most important person in his plan A, Liam Carter. Eva Chun was Liam's first love, his high school sweetheart. It was for her that Liam had gone down the wrong path, a path from which there was no return. Alex pretended to think for a moment. Eva Chun, from the Information Sciences Department. In reality, he'd had no idea who Eva was before this. He had Sophia. He never paid attention to other girls. Liam's eyes lit up. "Yes, that's her." Just then, Alex felt his phone vibrate in his pocket. It hadn't even been an hour, but a text from Sophia came through. "Husband, I'm on the road now. Where was your uncle laid to rest?" Alex typed back. The man was Sophia's uncle. Alex would respectfully call him that as well. North shore of Lake Granby, near Denver. A single phrase popped into Alex's head. Ashes scattered over water. "My uncle loved freedom, being untethered," Sophia texted. Even though he was an atheist in his final moments, he still hoped his soul could be free. So he probably wanted to visit him more often after he was gone. Staring at the two messages, Alex could feel a faint sadness radiating from them. He replied, "When I get the chance, I'll go with you. I hope he'll approve of me. If he doesn't, I'll never visit him again." From those two short lines, Alex could picture her sitting in the back of the car, the window half open, the wind messing up her bangs. A rare, willful pout would be on her stunning face, giving her a captivating, childlike charm. Alex let out a soft breath. God, he missed her. He bought the camera. He didn't haggle, but Liam gave him a $100 discount anyway. Liam looked at him intently. "Sorry to bother you, but could I ask you for a favor? Could you give a letter to Eva for me?" "Of course," Alex said with a smile. It was exactly what he had hoped for. The key to driving a wedge between Liam and Preston was Eva. Liam scribbled something in a notebook, tore out the page, placed it in an envelope, and sealed it with tape. He handed it to Alex with a solemn expression. This letter was very important to him. To be precise, Eva was very important to him. So important that he would give up his own life for her. The irony was that now, he had to humbly ask a customer he'd just met to help him contact her. The plan was going even more smoothly than Alex had imagined. By the time he left the electronics store and headed for Lakeview University, he had a new contact in his phone saved as Liam Carter. Alex wasn't worried that his appearance would arouse Preston's suspicion. First, Liam reported directly to Preston, and no one else knew about his dark, second identity beyond being a camera shop owner. So how could Alex, who had no connection to Liam, possibly know his secret? He was just a customer who happened to shop at his store and, by chance, was a student at the same university. It was a simple favor. Even if Preston found out, he would have to dismiss it all as a coincidence. Second, Preston's arrogance as a man in power meant he didn't care about the personal lives of his subordinates. His relationship with Liam was purely transactional. Unfortunately for Liam, He was a man of misplaced loyalty. When he was at his lowest, Preston had offered him a hand, and in return, Liam had devoted his life to two people, Preston and his high school sweetheart. Liam, who had abandoned his moral compass and willingly descended into a world of violence, was certainly no saint. So, the eventual dual betrayal by his first love and his boss could be seen as his just deserts. Just as Alec got out of the car, his second hourly text from Sophia arrived. This time, it was a photo of a vast, cloudless blue sky with a tiny mosquito-sized silhouette of a bird flying past. "Husband, look, isn't the sky beautiful?" Alex instinctively looked up. The sky above was a perfect, unbroken expanse of blue. It was so pure and clean it looked like a calm lake turned upside down, washing over any soul that took a moment to appreciate its beauty. "Yeah, it really is," he typed back, then added, "Are you almost there?" "Almost. 20 minutes at most. I'll send you a picture of the lake when I get there." "Okay." A small smile touched Alex's lips. He put his phone in his pocket and walked briskly toward Starbright Market. He was eager to see the girl who had made Jake abandon him. Unfortunately, Simon's sister had already left by the time he arrived. "Oh well." Jake popped out from inside the store. "Hey man, it's still early. Want to go hang out some more?" Simon was working, so Jake couldn't just stand around chatting with him. Plus, his mom seemed constitutionally incapable of seeing him idle. She always found some chore for him to do. He desperately needed Alex to rescue him. Alex shot him a cold, merciless glare and answered with a single word. "No." He then sincerely asked Simon to thank his sister for him, picked up the jar of pickles, and headed home. The day was divided into small segments by Sophia's hourly texts, which made the long wait feel less unbearable. On the north shore of Lake Granby, Preston Vance had taken off his sunglasses the moment he saw Sophia and hadn't put them back on. The wind coming off the lake was strong, whipping through their hair. Preston frowned, looking at Sophia, who kept a careful distance of 6 or 7 feet from him. Behind them, about 30 men stood in two distinct groups, clearly demarcated. One group was Preston's, the other Sophia's. It was worth noting that Preston had brought 3 times as many men as she had. Preston's eyes never left Sophia, but from the very beginning, she hadn't given him a single direct glance, treating him as if he were thin air. Preston clenched his jaw. In this world, besides his dead father, only Sophia could make him swallow his pride like this. But finally, he couldn't take it anymore. He walked toward her. "What are you doing?" Sophia held up her phone, her eyes glued to the screen. Her voice was flat. "Taking pictures. Are you blind?" Preston was speechless. "I know you're taking pictures," he gritted out. "I'm asking what you're taking them for." Sophia finally graced him with a look, but it was the kind of look one gives an idiot. To look at them, obviously. What else would they be for? Preston choked on his words. In the entire world, probably only Sophia could speak to him with such disrespect and not infuriate him. From the first time they met years ago to now, he couldn't recall her ever giving him a pleasant look. He had, strangely, gotten used to it. If she were suddenly nice to him, he probably wouldn't know how to react. Sophia was still the same Sophia, yet Preston felt something was different. The little girl who had once slavishly followed his father's demanding study schedule was now acting like one of those boring, stupid women, taking pointless pictures with her phone. Was it because she was in love? Preston's face darkened. Her uniqueness was fading because of that mediocre man, Alex Turner. Over time, would she lose her genius edge, become just another ordinary girl, content to follow in some man's footsteps and live out a mediocre life? No, he wouldn't allow it. "Who are you texting?" Sophia ignored him. "Your little boyfriend?" Preston's scornful, jealous words still failed to make the aloof girl look up. She sent the pictures of a lake, taken from several different angles, to Alex with the caption, "Made it to the lake." A reply came back almost instantly. "It's beautiful. I have to go there sometime." He sent a picture back, a view of the yard at their house. It was his way of telling her he was home. An involuntary, satisfied smile spread across Sophia's face. Although she knew her husband was completely devoted to her and that he was a model of fidelity, she still preferred him to stay safely at home. Just knowing he was there gave her peace of mind. Sensing someone approaching, Sophia instinctively took a step back. The blatant display of aversion made Preston's face darken further. "Joe, are you serious?" he said, his voice tight. "You're serious about that little boyfriend of yours?" Faced with her starkly different treatment of him versus Alex, Preston's composure finally cracked. He was arrogant, self-aggrandizing, a man who believed he was the chosen one. He naturally assumed everyone should revolve around him. Even if there was one exception, Sophia. Her coldness had always been universal. She was cold to him but she was cold to everyone. That meant it was her personality, not his fault. 2 years ago, she had treated everyone with the same indifference. Not even his father could get more than a few words out of her. Preston had assumed she would remain that way forever, keeping everyone at a distance. Without the old man's restraints these past 2 years, he had been busy expanding his own territory and hadn't contacted her. He figured her cold nature meant she was still alone, unwilling to let anyone get close. He was wrong. Suddenly, there was a boy by her side, and she treasured that boy. Joe, when will you understand that Alex Turner is? Preston wanted to say that Alex was a commoner, that he wasn't even worthy of shining her shoes, let alone deserving of her love. But the words caught in his throat. He couldn't forget the hard slap he'd received the first time he'd told her Alex wasn't good enough for her. Preston had never interacted with Alex, so there was no personal animosity between them. But that didn't stop Alex from being a thorn in his side, one he was desperate to remove. Preston had convinced himself that Sophia's current lack of ambition was a direct result of Alex's mediocrity. Sophia put her phone away and took a large bouquet of white lilies from Charles, bending down to place them at the water's edge. "You're wrong, Preston," she said, flicking droplets of lake water from her fingers. Her tone was casual. "My husband isn't the reason I won't work with you." Preston frowned. "Then what is the real reason?" Sophia shot him a half-smile. "Knowing you, it's better if you don't know." "No," he insisted. "I have to know." A mocking smile touched her lips. "I won't work with you because you're a fool." Preston was speechless. Ignoring him, Sophia continued, "Your grand ambition to spread your influence across the globe, to achieve world domination. It's a childish fantasy." The two of them, one not yet 19 and the other barely in his 20s, were discussing a topic as vast as global control. Anyone overhearing them would have laughed, thinking they were still playing house. But they were both completely serious. Preston's face flushed. The word childish had clearly hit its mark. "You call me childish," he blurted out. "That's because all you do now is fawn over your little boyfriend. You have no idea what I've achieved." Sophia's reply was cool. "Oh, and what have you achieved?" Preston was about to boast about his accomplishments from the past 2 years when his assistant quickly cut him off. "Mr. Vance." Preston shot a wary look at Sophia. "You're not my partner right now. I have nothing more to say to you." Sophia was unconcerned. She hadn't expected to find a weakness by talking to him anyway. Her gaze fell on the rippling surface of the lake. "Uncle, I'm going to send your son to join you." The water remained calm. Sophia turned and started walking back, not even bothering to say goodbye. She and Preston were not on the same path. Soon, they would be mortal enemies. It was her duty to send this man to be reunited with his father, but wasting any more time on him now was a waste of her life. She needed to go home to her husband. Alex sat on the floor by the French doors, fiddling with his new camera. One moment he was taking pictures of the sky, the next of the plants like a child with a new toy. But really he was just bored. His gaze drifted outside for the 10th time. It was 1 in the afternoon. 5 hours remained until the agreed-upon deadline. He looked it up online. The drive from the north shore of Lake Granby was at least 2 hours. An hour ago, Sophia was still there. She had just sent another picture, confirming she was still by the lake. He knew it was too early. He should probably take a nap to make the time pass faster. But he couldn't sleep. What if he fell asleep and didn't reply to her text right away? She would be disappointed, hurt. So he had to stay awake, waiting until she returned. Alex looked down, thinking about how he would get Liam's letter to Eva on Monday. Lost in thought, he suddenly felt a pair of hands cover his eyes from behind. He froze. He was in his own room. His room and Sophia's were private sanctuaries. No one ever entered without permission, except for the housekeeper when it was time to clean. Besides him, only Sophia could come and go freely. And besides Sophia, only he could enter her room. So the hands covering his eyes had to be. But Sophia was still near Denver. Confused, then realizing what was happening, Alex sighed in resignation. Little liar. The hands moved from his eyes, slid down to his shoulders, then wrapped around his neck, slowly tightening. A sinister voice whispered in his ear, "Alex, time to die." But Alex just lifted the hem of his shirt. The ghost, who had appeared in broad daylight, froze. "Hey, that wasn't the reaction I was expecting." Alex revealed his lean stomach, the faint outline of an 8-pack visible, a result of his recent persistent morning workouts. Well, not every morning. It wasn't a lack of willpower, but rather the soft girl in his arms holding him too tight. He couldn't bear to wake her by pushing her away. He took the ghost's hands from his neck and pressed them directly over his heart. Her pale skin was a stark contrast to his healthy tan. A smile played on Alex's lips. "My life isn't worth much. The most valuable thing I have is right here. If you want it, it's yours." It was his heart. A soft, happy laugh tickled his ear. Sophia leaned her weight against him, her hand resting on his chest, feeling the strong, steady beat of his heart. "Little liar," Alex murmured again. Sophia nuzzled his cheek like a kitten seeking affection from its owner. "I wanted to surprise you." "Are you sure it was a surprise and not a heart attack?" Sophia giggled. It had been a spur-of-the-moment idea. Seeing Alex so calm, she had suddenly wanted to scare him. Subconsciously, she knew she couldn't actually frighten him, or she would never have played such a silly joke. Her feelings were a little contradictory. She knew she couldn't scare him, but when she actually failed to, she was a bit puzzled. "But husband, when I told you it was time to die, you weren't even a little bit scared?" "Of course not. I have a clear conscience. I'm not afraid of ghosts knocking at my door." Alex reached around and pulled her into his lap. "There's another reason. Actually." "What is it?" "This game is too childish." The tables had turned. Just today, Sophia had called Preston childish. Now, Alex was calling her the same thing. On Monday, at the entrance to the lecture hall, Alex handed the letter to Eva Chun. Eva and the other students who saw it were stunned. Alex held a unique status at Lakeview University. He was both low-key and high-profile. His personality was reserved, but his aura and style were anything but. Eva's first impression was one of fragility, like a delicate flower in the wind, the type of girl who easily invoked a desire to protect. As she looked at the envelope Alex held out, her expression was a mixture of surprise and a subtle, hard-to-detect flicker of pride. Alex had no idea just how legendary he had become at Lakeview. The general consensus was that he was aloof, unapproachable, and backed by powerful connections. Now, he was approaching her. Of course, she felt a little smug. Yet, mixed with that pride was a sense of entitlement, as if this was only natural. Eva, like everyone else watching, assumed the letter was a love letter. Simon Shaw stood beside Alex, looking utterly bewildered. Unlike the others, he knew Alex had a girlfriend, and that they were serious. More importantly, his girlfriend was not the kind of weak girl you could mess with. If Alex dared to cheat on her, he would probably meet a very grisly end. Therefore, Simon concluded it couldn't be a love letter. And if it was, it certainly wasn't from Alex. As expected, Alex said, "Someone asked me to give this to you." Eva took the letter. Whether it was from Alex or not didn't really matter. The fact that the mysterious Alex Turner had given it to her was enough to boost her ego in front of her classmates. She tore it open, glanced at the contents, and her face fell with disappointment. Later, when she thought no one was looking, she tossed it into a nearby trash can and walked off arm in arm with a friend, laughing as they headed toward an upscale cafe. But Alex saw. He knew she hadn't just thrown away a letter. She had thrown away Liam Carter's heart. Putting aside Liam's criminal acts, from another perspective, he was a pitiful figure. Without Eva, it was highly unlikely Liam would have ever gone down that dark path. They had grown up together, childhood sweethearts. Even as their families' fortunes diverged and they grew apart, their bond remained. 3 years ago, Eva was diagnosed with leukemia. The astronomical medical bills and lack of a suitable bone marrow donor meant the budding flower was left to wither. Her parents, at their wits' end, had made the painful decision to give up. Liam did not. While scrambling desperately for a solution, he met Preston Vance, who promised he could help. Soon after, a matching donor was found for Eva, and her transplant surgery was a success. The massive costs of the surgery and subsequent treatments were all covered by a charity called the Vance Foundation. Eva was given a new life. Liam, who had silently sacrificed everything for her, had descended into hell. He never told her what he had done, perhaps out of some misguided sense of chivalry, letting the Vance Foundation take all the credit. He still yearned to be with his beloved, but her family, due to some misunderstanding, forbade her from seeing him. On her family's orders, she deleted all his contact information, got a new phone number, and vanished from his life. Liam was devastated. He had to resort to asking a stranger just to get in touch with her again. He assumed she was just as miserable as he was, unable to reach him. In reality, his precious childhood sweetheart, Eva, wasn't miserable at all. No one feels pain for someone they don't care about. And his sweetheart didn't care about him in the slightest. Maybe she once had, but that was a long time ago. Around noon, Alex received a text from the contact saved as Liam Carter. "Hello, did you give the letter to Eva?" Alex replied, "I did. Liam Carter, thank you." That night at 10, as Alex was drying Sophia's hair, his phone rang. Sophia glanced at the screen. "Liam Carter?" Alex set the blow-dryer aside and ran his long fingers through her hair a few times to smooth it out. Her naturally wavy hair tended to get a little frizzy when dry. Sophia picked up the phone, puzzled. "Why is he calling you?" Alex, ever the dutiful partner, had already told Sophia all about his outing that Saturday. He'd gone to the electronics store, bought a camera, and the owner, a nice guy, had given him a discount and asked for a small favor. He didn't have to tell her. She would have found out anyway, but telling her himself was different. What's this guy's problem, calling so late at night? You barely know him, Sophia grumbled, annoyed that their time together was being interrupted, but she handed him the phone anyway. Alex answered. Liam's voice came through, urgent and strained. Did you give a letter to Eva? His tone was so rushed that, even though he was asking a question, it sounded like an accusation. Lying comfortably with her head on Alex's lap, Sophia frowned. I did, Alex said calmly. You gave it to her personally? Yes, I put it right in her hand. Are you sure you didn't get the wrong person? There's only one Eva Chun in the information sciences department, and you show me her picture. I couldn't have made a mistake. Liam was cautious. He'd shown Alex a photo of Eva on his phone before giving him the letter, just to be sure. But if he didn't get it wrong, Liam said, his voice filled with confusion and panic, then why? Why wasn't she at our old spot tonight? Alex knew it was cruel, but for Plan A to succeed, he had to say it. Mr. Carter, you might not believe this, but I saw Eva throw your letter into the trash. Sophia picked up her own phone. Alex saw her typing a text to someone. If he had a guess, she was ordering an investigation into Liam Carter, and probably Eva Chun as well. After sending the message, Sophia commented, that Eva girl threw his letter away without a second thought. It's obvious he's the only one who cares. Alex nodded. I think so, too. She looked at him. Why did you help him? He gave me a $100 discount. Alex said, his voice steady. I did it for the money. Sophia laughed. Husband, you're a billionaire now. You don't need to get yourself into trouble over a mere $100. Honestly, you're just too kind-hearted. I know, Alex said dutifully. I won't meddle in other people's business again. Alex didn't know the specifics of how Sophia planned to deal with Preston Vance. All he knew was that ever since Preston had shown up, she had been incredibly busy. To make her life easier, and his own, of course, he had set his plans in motion. Plan A was proceeding smoothly. He had successfully pushed Liam Carter and Eva Chun in her line of sight. Sophia's sharp intellect and terrifyingly efficient methods were like water, seeping into any crack. Once Alex drilled even the smallest pinhole in the wall of secrecy, she would flood in and uncover every hidden truth. Through the large floor-to-ceiling windows, Alex and Sophia enjoyed a lavish lunch while watching a man and woman arguing outside. The man was Liam Carter, the owner of the camera shop. The other was the delicate Eva Chun. Sophia observed them coolly. He looks like he's on the verge of a breakdown, she commented. Alex agreed. Liam, afraid of further antagonizing Eva's parents, hadn't dared to confront her at the university. But after learning she had thrown away his letter, he couldn't hold back any longer. Sophia finished her light seaweed soup, her eyes casually fixed on the pitiful man being brushed off and walking away in a daze. A faint, cruel smile touched her lips. Just one more push, and I'll be the one to give it to him. Preston Vance was a petty, despicable man. He used Liam as his attack dog, while simultaneously seducing the very girl Liam cared about most. With his wealth and status, he could have had any woman he wanted, yet he chose Eva, fully aware of how much she meant to Liam. To him, Liam was just a loyal dog who would bite on command. Why would he ever restrain himself for the sake of a dog? And the foolish college girl actually thought she had found true love. Looking back at the boy she had once promised forever to, all she felt now was disgust. Sophia pulled her gaze away and found Alex looking at her. A jolt of alarm went through her. Did he see what I was thinking? We think I'm cruel. She was being paranoid. He couldn't read minds. How could he possibly know what she was thinking? Composing herself, she smiled warmly. Husband, you're my lucky star. Alex knew what she meant, but played dumb. What? I think I'm going to send Preston to reunite with my uncle much sooner and more smoothly than I expected, she said without hesitation. What does that have to do with me? Alex feigned surprise. Everything. Ever since you came back to me, everything I do has gone smoothly. Alex just smiled. He knew the cunning Sophia would never admit that she had people secretly investigating everyone he came into contact with. Because she knew his every move, she wouldn't overthink things. She would naturally attribute Liam's appearance to a fortunate coincidence, and by extension, give Alex the credit. No matter how wild her imagination was, she would never suspect he was a reincarnator who had seen the future. And since Sophia and others had never revealed her surveillance, how did he know? He had pieced it together from clues in both his past and present lives, using his own clever mind. The investigation into Preston is going well? He asked. Yes, exceptionally well, so well it surprised even her. She had been prepared for a drawn-out war, lasting a year or more. But because her husband had taken a trip out of town and done a small favor for someone out of the kindness of his heart, she had been handed this enormous gift. It was a coincidence so perfect it felt like it had been orchestrated by someone. By whom? Fate, perhaps. So, when she said her husband was her lucky star, she wasn't exaggerating. Liam's loyalty to Preston wasn't unbreakable, not with Eva in the picture. Sophia quickly adjusted her strategy, unknowingly aligning it perfectly with Alex's plan A. 2 days before the Labor Day holiday, Michael and Emily Turner finally returned from their month-long trip abroad. The vibrant energy they radiated showed how well they had been cared for. There was none of the usual post-travel exhaustion. Alex and Sophia had video chatted with them daily, so it felt like they had seen them, but seeing them on a small screen was nothing like having them here in person. The moment she walked in, Emily enveloped Sophia in a tight hug. Michael stood by, smiling at his now sidelined son. You know, your mother talked about Sophie more than anyone else while we were away. Mom, you're playing favorites. Alex feigned heartbreak. I'm your real son. Sophia, triumphant, linked her arm with Emily's. And what are you going to do about it? I'm her favorite now. The house, empty for a month, was immaculate, showing no signs of its owner's absence. The air in the yard was thick with the scent of sweet osmanthus, and chrysanthemums and roses bloomed in vibrant clusters. Emily, having not cooked in a month, was eager to get back into the kitchen, only to find the dining table already laden with a feast. With a daughter-in-law as thoughtful and capable as Sophia, it seemed all they had to do was sit back and enjoy being pampered. Yes, just enjoy it. In the past, they had dreamed of their future. Their happy life was supposed to begin after retirement. Once Alex was grown, married, with kids of his own, they imagined themselves helping with the grandchildren, grocery shopping, cooking, a simple, happy life. They never dared to dream of great wealth. A peaceful existence was enough. But fate was a funny thing. Michael had retired early, and their good life had arrived, so suddenly it felt like they were living in a dream. Even now, it sometimes felt unreal. But the vibrant world around them confirmed it was all real. So they decided not to overthink it and just enjoy the moment. After the meal, Sophia excused herself and stepped away to take a call from Charles. Miss Sophia, we have conclusive evidence of Eva Chin's affair with Preston Vance. When should we deliver it to Liam Carter? Her expression was neutral, but a cold aura emanated from her, making her seem like a completely different person from the girl who had just been playfully clinging to Emily's arm. Tonight, she said, and that was all. There were no further instructions, no reminders to monitor Liam's emotional state or prevent him from tipping Preston off before he calmed down. Charles and his team, through their years of meticulous professionalism and working with Sophia, had developed an unspoken understanding. Such precautions were second nature to them. She didn't need to say a word. A war, started by Preston Vance, was now raging in the open. When he first decided to provoke Sophia, he had naturally anticipated her retaliation and believed he was fully prepared. He intended not only to force her out of her lover's arms, but also to make her bow to him. Harlan Corp was going through a difficult time. Suddenly, every project was hitting roadblocks, progress grinding to a halt. It was as if they had become an unlucky target, surrounded by a ring of cold, merciless snipers firing relentlessly, determined to leave them riddled with holes. For the senior executives at Harlan Corp, the sense of déjà vu was terrifying. The current situation felt eerily similar to the prelude to the company's near bankruptcy. Could it be that even with a genius at the helm, Harlan Corp was doomed to fail? During a critical board meeting, an executive demanded a guarantee from Sophia that they would survive the crisis. Her reply was delivered in a light, airy tone. The sky isn't falling. It was a completely dismissive response. Some were dissatisfied, but others, like the company's original heir, Ethan Harlan, found a strange sense of reassurance in her confidence. Alex, having successfully executed Plan A, had stepped back, leaving the main stage to Sophia. He remained oblivious to the struggles at Harlan Corp. And even if he knew, what could he do? It had nothing to do with him. Only Sophia's happiness concerned him. So, on the surface at least, his life returned to its peaceful routine. It was worth noting that Sophia's personal fortune was not tied to Harlan Corp. Even if the company did inevitably go bankrupt, it would not affect her in the slightest. She owned assets that were entirely her own, like the Skyview building and the commercial property she had gifted to Alex. Caleb Harlan's malicious speculations about her motives had been entirely baseless. Sophia had saved Harlan Corp to fulfill a promise to her uncle, Edward Vance. Her continued presence there was driven by a darker impulse. She wanted to crush them all under her heel. It was as simple as that. Andy, this one would look great on you too. Excuse me, Can you wrap this one, and this one up for us?" Attendants trailed behind them, their arms laden with shopping bags. Ahead, the two women, closer than any mother and daughter, walked arm in arm. With Alex at school and Michael tending to his garden at home, Sophia and Emily were out shopping, each busy in their own way. "We bought too many clothes. I'll never be able to wear them all," Emily said with a helpless sigh. They were sitting in a cozy, living room-like dining area at the private kitchen, looking at the dozens of bags piled on the sofa. She knew Sophia was rich. Ever since Alex had brought her home, Sophia had been spending money on them nonstop. She had given them luxury cars, a mansion, and covered nearly all of their living expenses. She had sent them on a global tour, complete with a team of assistants to manage their daily lives and plan their itinerary, allowing them to navigate foreign countries for a month despite their limited language skills. But this was the first time Emily had gone shopping with Sophia, and she was stunned by her terrifying purchasing power. When Sophia casually handed over a card, the long string of numbers that flashed on the screen made Emily feel as if she were watching a dam burst, the water inside rushing out in a torrential flood. Logically, she knew Sophia's bank account wasn't a reservoir but a vast, boundless ocean, yet it still made her heart pound. Sophia asked her with a grin, "Auntie, why do you think we all work so hard to earn money?" Emily was speechless. To enjoy a better life, of course. People saved because they didn't have enough. When money became just an endless string of digits on a screen, saving seemed pointless. But that didn't mean one should be wasteful. "Auntie, if you wear a new outfit every day and look beautiful, that's the meaning behind spending this money." Emily couldn't help but laugh. Her daughter-in-law had a way of making everything sound reasonable. All right, I promise. I'll dress up beautifully every day." After resting their feet, Emily toured the restaurant from the first floor to the second. From the second floor, she could see the bustling campus of Lakeview University, filled with the vibrant energy of college life. Her eyes grew warm. She knew that after Alex had been accepted, Sophia had set up a small kitchen for him next to Starbright Market, so he could eat well. She had assumed it was just a small place with good food. She and her husband had never visited, not wanting to intrude on the young couple's private time. She had no idea Sophia had put so much care into this place. This wasn't just a small kitchen. You could call it a small home. "Auntie, do you like it here?" Sophia asked, looking like a first grader hoping for praise after getting a perfect score on a test. Emily stood with her back to her, not moving. Sophia sensed something was wrong. "Auntie." "Sophie, thank you." Emily turned and pulled Sophia into a tight hug. "Thank you, my child." It wasn't their first hug, but before, Emily's embraces had always been light, symbolic. She had never held her this tightly. In her arms, Sophia felt a warmth she had never known, a warmth she never dared to hope for from Catherine. It was the loving embrace of a mother. "What's wrong, Auntie?" Sophia asked, coming back to her senses. "What are you thanking me for?" "Thank you for taking such good care of Alex." Emily's voice was thick with emotion. "The way you look after him goes far beyond what his father and I have ever done. I'm so sincerely grateful to you." Sophia was taken aback. That was it. But taking care of Alex was the most natural thing in the world to her. A relationship was a two-way street. Alex was good to her, too. In fact, he was the one who was good to her first. Sophia looked at Emily with absolute seriousness. "Auntie, Alex is your son, but he's also my husband. It's my duty to be good to him. Don't you ever be so formal with me again, okay? Or I'll get angry." Emily laughed through her tears. I know. I won't make that mistake again." When they went downstairs, Alex had already arrived from his last class. He was standing in front of the sofa piled high with shopping bags, deep in thought. Hearing them, he turned and immediately noticed his mother's slightly red eyes. "And he got some dust in her eye," Sophia said, covering for her. The wind was indeed a bit strong today, but Alex knew Sophia was lying. After lunch, while Sophia went upstairs to get something, Emily playfully smacked him on the head. Alex looked at her, confused. Emily gazed at him with pride, reaching out to touch his face just as she had when he was a boy. "You lucky brat." Before Alex could respond, she added with a world of feeling, "Your father and I are lucky too." The Labor Day weekend meant a 3-day break from classes. For the Turner family, the usual trio had become a quartet. Emily insisted on cooking herself. She firmly believed that only a home-cooked meal truly tasted like home. She was a natural caregiver. If her health allowed it, she would find ways to keep even busier. As was their old habit, Michael helped her in the kitchen. They had been at it since 9 in the morning. For many parents, like the Turners, their desires were simple. A life spent revolving around their child and their kitchen, peaceful, healthy, and together, was all they wanted. Alex took Sophia out to the pomegranate tree in the yard. The fruits were the size of fists, some already split open. As Alex picked one of the split ones, Sophia said regretfully, "This one's spoiled." "What a shame." "It's not spoiled. The ones that are ripe like this are actually the best." Alex gently broke the pomegranate into two uneven halves and handed one to Sophia. "Try it." With her neatly trimmed nails, Sophia carefully picked out two ruby-like arrows and popped them in her mouth. She had never eaten a pomegranate that had split open. She had always seen them thrown away and assumed they were bad. But if her husband said it was fine, then it was fine. She trusted him. Truthfully, while Sophia's childhood had no fond memories, she had never suffered any material hardship. But she would have gladly traded all that material wealth for emotional nourishment. If only she could have had a warm hug like Emily's when she was a child. Her grandmother had hugged her, but it was always a hurried embrace, snatched in secret when that woman wasn't around. Her grandmother was afraid of her own daughter, helpless against her stubbornness and madness. On her deathbed, entrusting Sophia to Edward Vance was the last act of love her grandmother could give her. The pomegranate seeds burst in her mouth, a sweet and slightly tart flavor spreading across her tongue. She smiled, her eyes sparkling. "It really is delicious." She knew it. Trusting her husband was always the right choice. Alex shelled the translucent seeds into his palm and held them out for Sophia. She graciously took a small handful, but instead of eating them, she lifted them to Alex's lips. They shared the rest of the pomegranate, feeding each other one bite at a time. "Miss Sophia." Charles waited until they were finished before approaching, holding out his ringing phone. "It's Mr. Vance. This is his third call today." Charles had been under immense pressure, but working for Sophia had instilled a certain pride in her staff. Even when dealing with the family's former young master, they maintained a polite exterior but felt no real respect. The first two times Preston called, Charles had deflected with, "Miss Sophia is busy." By the third call, Preston was losing his patience. Yet Charles had held off until his mistress and her boyfriend had finished their pomegranate. Sophia leisurely wiped her hands with a wet wipe, then unhurriedly took the insistently ringing phone. "Don't test my patience, you old fool. Don't think I won't touch you just because Joe protects you. I could crush you like an ant." A voice colder and more ruthless than Preston's cut him off. "Who are you going to crush?" Alex stood by Sophia's side. He had been enjoying a few lazy days within the protective bubble she had built for him and had almost forgotten about Preston's existence. But when he wondered, would it be his turn to protect Sophia and his family? He needed to find a way to become stronger. In his past life, and this one, Alex had always craved strength. Before, it was to escape Sophia and protect his family. Now, his goal was the same, but the family he had to protect included Sophia. This presented a new challenge. The process of becoming stronger would undoubtedly make Sophia feel insecure, possibly even triggering her pathological possessiveness again. For the sake of her peace of mind, Alex had considered giving up on that ambition, content to be the pampered, kept husband for the rest of his life. It wasn't a bad fate, but Preston's appearance was a stark reminder that he couldn't afford to be complacent. Without the knowledge from his past life, he was just an ordinary person. Even if Sophia stood still and let him run, he could never catch up to where she was now. Even with his knowledge, without the right opportunities or a cheat system, becoming strong enough to protect her in a short time was pure fantasy. But Alex realized with a flicker of excitement, the situation with Preston might just be the opportunity he was looking for. Preston's tone shifted faster than flipping a page. "I was just kidding, Joe. Happy Labor Day. Why don't we celebrate together?" "No, thank you," Sophia replied, her tone leaving no room for negotiation. Preston changed the subject. "Sophie, how's business lately? I heard Harlan Corp is running into some trouble." "That's none of your concern." "Hey, don't say that. We're practically childhood friends. Your problems are my problems. Why don't you pick a place? We could get together, have a nice holiday meal." "Do you not understand English?" "Joe, I'm being sincere here. Do you have to trample on my feelings like this?" "Fine. You don't want to see me. I can understand that. But you don't want to see your only living relative either." Alex couldn't hear what Preston was saying, but he saw Sophia's hand tighten around the phone, her knuckles turning white. After a long moment, she looked at him, her eyes soft. With a voice full of pride, almost as if she were showing off, she spoke into the phone. "My real family is right here with me." With that, she hung up without hesitation. She hadn't been lying. Her real family was here. Her husband, Alex, the aunt and uncle who treated her like their own daughter. Even the loyal Charles, Arthur, Mrs. Helen, and Mrs. Peterson. They were all by her side. She wasn't alone at all. She was happy, and she would stay that way. She handed the phone back to Charles and looped her arm through Alex's, her smile gentle. Come on, husband. Let's go see if your parents need any help. In a lavish villa near Denver, an elegant, middle-aged woman whose beauty had gracefully withstood the test of time held a delicate coffee cup in her hands. Preston Vance threw up his hands in a gesture of helplessness. Aunt Catherine, you heard her yourself. She's just as heartless toward you as she is toward me. The woman took a sip of her coffee, remaining silent for a long moment before saying with a self-mocking smile, That's normal. She hates me. Catherine, it must break your heart to see her fall this low, doesn't it? Preston Vance's voice was a low, seductive murmur as he stirred his coffee. You can't just stand by and watch this happen. We have to work together to stop Jo from sinking any further. She's a genius. She shouldn't be wasting her time on some childish romance. No one is worthy of her, except for me, the only one who can help her climb even higher. Catherine, you're the only one who can make her see sense. Catherine listened in silence, her expression unreadable. When he finished, she placed her cup down on the saucer with a soft click. Her posture was impeccable, her hands folded neatly in her lap. She looked up at Preston, and a fanatical, possessive glint flickered in her eyes. You're right, she said, her voice a cold whisper. This cannot continue. She is my legacy in this world. The wrong turns I took, the hardships I endured. I will not let her repeat my mistakes. I brought her into this world. I am the only person who is irreplaceable to her. She will listen to me. Don't worry. I won't stand by and do nothing. Lunch had been delicious. Dinner was even better. The air was sweet with the scent of late summer jasmine, and the sweet potato pie was a perfect taste of the holiday. The moon, a symbol of reunion on this Labor Day weekend, hung in the sky, huge and perfectly round. If Sophia hadn't gotten that call from Preston Vance, the day would have been perfect. Still, from what Alex could tell, she wasn't letting it get to her. Stuffed from dinner, she spent the whole walk back to the car rubbing her stomach. Your mom is an amazing cook, she sighed as she got out of the car. I couldn't help myself. Alex instinctively took her hand, her slender fingers lacing through his as they walked. If you like my mom's cooking, that's an easy fix. We'll just go over more often. Sophia suddenly pressed a finger to her lips in a should gesture. She tiptoed closer, her voice a conspiratorial whisper in his ear. Quiet, don't let Mrs. Helen hear you. You'll hurt her feelings. Alex chuckled. Mrs. Helen herself had declared that her life's mission was to fatten up Miss Sophia. She dedicated herself to mastering the culinary arts, only for her charge to fall in love with someone else's home cooking. It would be a devastating blow. His Sophia. She seemed so unapproachable on the surface, but once you got to know her, you realized she had a warm heart hidden behind that cool exterior. She did her best to take care of everyone around her, provided, of course, that she cared about them. And he, it seemed, was number one on that list. A warmth spread through Alex's chest, sweeter than the pie he'd eaten earlier. I love your mom's cooking, Sophia said, pulling him from his thoughts. But I don't want to get fat. What do I do? Alex was a little surprised. Sophia had always been different from other girls. He assumed someone so naturally stunning wouldn't worry much about her appearance. For the first time, he realized she had the same anxieties as anyone else. It made her feel wonderfully, refreshingly real. He glanced up at the glowing disk in the sky and smiled. A little extra weight would be a good thing. My mom is always saying you're too thin and I need to make sure you eat more. Sophia shook her head firmly. No, I can't get too fat. Trying to stay slim? You're already incredibly slim. You'd look even better with a little more curve to you. No, she insisted. I don't want to get fat. They had reached the second floor. At the door to their bedroom, Sophia stopped. It's not about being slim. Then what is it about? Alex asked. She threw the question back at him. You guess. He thought for a moment, but came up blank. Wrapping her arms around his neck, she leaned in, her voice a playful purr. Husband, carry me. Alex obliged, sliding one arm behind her back and the other under her knees, lifting her effortlessly. Sophia's eyes crinkled into a smile. Silly husband. Do you get it now? Alex blinked, confused for a second before it hit him. She was afraid that if she gained weight, he wouldn't be able to carry her. He kicked the door open and walked inside, not sure whether to laugh or cry. Sophie, you got to give me a little more credit than that. You could weigh 250 and I'd still be able to carry you. Her face fell into a pout. Really? But if I got that big, I'd be ugly. Even if you could carry me, you probably wouldn't want to. Sophie, he said, feigning hurt. Am I that shallow in your eyes? He couldn't help but picture a heavier Sophia, and found the image adorable. A soft, round, bossy little thing. You know, Sophie, that gives me an idea, he said thoughtfully, holding her close as he stood in the middle of the bedroom. He had to admit, Her being light had its advantages. He might be able to lift 250 pounds, but he probably couldn't hold it for long. Sophia stared at his eyelashes, which she'd long ago noticed were thick and dark, like tiny brushes. What idea? That if I ever let myself go and hit 250, you definitely wouldn't love me anymore. Sophia immediately shot that down. Never. It doesn't matter what you look like on the outside. As long as you're still you, I'll love you forever. A sly grin spread across Alex's face. See? It's the same for me, Sophie. Fat or thin, beautiful or not, I'll love you just the same. She broke into a triumphant, final boss-level smile. Husband, you fell for it. Alex just looked at her. I led you on this whole conversation about weight, just to hear you say that no matter what, you'll never leave me. Huh. Alex sighed. She was a clever little thing. His brain was just no match for hers. But if he had to be outsmarted by someone, he was glad it was her. It was strange. They had all the time in the world, just the two of them. They could take a long, relaxing shower, then lie in bed and hold each other until morning. If that wasn't enough, they could forget everything else and just stay tangled together forever. With Sophia's wealth, they could afford to be that reckless. But right now, Alex couldn't bring himself to put her down, and she didn't want to leave the circle of his arms. They were caught in a unique kind of procrastination, unable to part. He gently brushed his lips against her cheek. If something's on your mind, tell me. Let me help. Sophia thought for a moment. Those people didn't deserve to get to her. But they had. She felt so useless. I hate that woman, she said, her voice tight. Why can't she just stay away? She's not going to let me go. But now I'm not going to let her go. She clutched the front of his shirt, a flicker of uncertainty in her eyes. Husband, a person like me. Does it scare you? After all, she's the one who carried me for 9 months. Alex answered her with complete sincerity. How could it? Sophie, you have to remember, you're your own person. You're not anyone's property. Alex thought his comforting words were perfectly reasonable. People were independent individuals. They deserve respect and the right to choose their own future. Parents couldn't use the gift of life as a chain to bind and control their children, especially when, in Sophia's case, her biological mother had failed to provide any real upbringing. You're wrong, Sophia countered. Alex was taken aback. What's wrong? It's just wrong. He was completely baffled. As he stood there, lost in thought, Sophia struggled out of his arms. I'm going to take a shower, she mumbled. She walked to the bathroom, then paused at the door, turned around, and locked the bedroom door from the inside. Then she took the key. Alex stared, bewildered. What was that supposed to mean? Was she afraid he'd run away while she was in the shower? He loved every single day he spent with her. Why would he ever run? He thought hard, replaying every word he'd just said, down to the last punctuation mark. He was certain he hadn't said anything wrong. When Sophia came out, she gestured for him to go next. Your turn. Alex didn't dare argue. When he came out from a shower, he found she'd already dried her own hair, a first since they'd started sharing a room. She was cocooned in the silk duvet on her side of the bed, her back to him, as still as if she were already asleep. Still clueless as to his crime, Alex gently lifted a corner of the duvet and slipped into bed. He turned off the light, then rolled onto his side, pressing close and wrapping his arms around the girl who, for the first time ever, was sleeping with her back to him. Sophie, don't ignore me. He knew she was awake. Tell me what I did wrong. I'll fix it. Her voice was muffled and sulky. You didn't do anything wrong. I'm the one who's wrong. Alex was lost. She added with defiant conviction, but I'm never going to change. He couldn't help but smile. Sophie, please, he pleaded. Just be nice and tell me what I did wrong. Give me a chance to make it right. She finally softened. She felt like she was committing a crime, turning her cold back on the best husband in the world. She'd been spoiled by him, grown too willful. This was wrong. She couldn't be like this. Filled with a sense of profound guilt, Sophia shifted in his arms, finally turning over to face him. Instantly, she felt better. Sleeping in her husband's arms was much more comfortable. She rested her head on his chest, faintly hearing the beat of his heart. I just told you, she murmured. You're not wrong. I am. Alex sounded miserable. If I'm not wrong, then why are you upset? It's my problem. Sophie, you already called me a silly husband. I really don't know why you're upset. But no matter whose fault it is, when you're unhappy, I feel awful too. What's going on? Please, just talk to me. She was quiet for a long time. Just as Alex resigned himself to a sleepless night spent guessing the source of her anger, she finally spoke. Husband, do you remember when we met again? Of course, he remembered. The scene of a stunningly beautiful girl asking him for help on the street. He'd experienced it twice, and both times were seared in his memory. The first had dragged him into hell. The second had, impossibly, delivered him to heaven. It made him marvel sometimes that the same encounter could lead to such different fates, all hinging on a single choice. In the dark, Sophia's hand found a button on his pajama shirt and began to toy with it absently. The moment I saw you, I decided I was going to keep you by my side. Even if you didn't want to, even if you fought it. Husband, you're mine. You can only be mine. You are not an independent individual. Alex froze. So that was it. His comment about people being individuals had clashed with her possessiveness. He was both amused and deeply touched. Okay, he said, his voice soft and yielding. I'm not an independent individual. I'm yours. That seemed to please her. And don't feel too bad about it, she added. You're mine, and I'm yours. That's fair, isn't it? I won't let you get the short end of the deal, husband. We belong to each other. We're a single entity. We'll be together for all of eternity. Okay, I promise you anything. Husband, why are you so good to me? Because you're my Sophie. The conversation was cut short by a kiss. In a hazy warmth that followed, it was impossible to tell who had initiated it. It didn't matter. They were one. Indivisible. Outside, the round moon shone brightly. Inside, a boy and a girl who had promised each other forever were finally, truly, becoming whole. The next morning, Alex opened his eyes. The girl sleeping peacefully in his arms brought the fuzzy edges of his brain into sharp focus. It wasn't a dream. After last night, she was completely, utterly his. A wave of euphoria washed over him, followed by a profound sense of guilt. He had seriously overestimated his self-control. He meant to wait until she was older. He was a real piece of work. His self-loathing lasted only a few seconds before he started making excuses for himself. He was a man, a healthy man, sharing a bed every night with a beautiful young woman. If he wasn't tempted, there would be something wrong with him. The girl in his arms stirred, her brow furrowing slightly. Sophia was waking up. She blinked her eyes open, met his gaze for a split second, then squeezed them shut and buried her face in his chest, as if hiding would make her invisible. It reminded Alex of a puppy his grandma used to have, a fluffy, chubby little thing that was always cold, or maybe just craved affection. When he'd set it on his lap while watching cartoons, it would burrow into his chest, letting out tiny, contented whimpers. It suddenly occurred to him, now, that the little puppy, recently weaned, might have been trying to nurse. Sophia, of course, was not looking for milk. She was shy. Alex chuckled softly and held her tighter. Truth be told, he was embarrassed too. It would be laughable if anyone found out, but after living 2 lives, this was his first time. If it hadn't been for this girl in his past life, he never would have developed such a deep-seated fear of women, keeping them all at a distance. He would have done what his parents wanted, graduated from college, found a stable job, married a gentle wife, and had a lively, adorable kid. Thinking of this, he buried his face in the crook of her neck and gave her smooth, soft skin a playful, retaliatory nip. Oomph. You're going to have to make up for my entire last life, he thought. But the little vixen had a vengeful streak of her own. She immediately bit him back. That creep cornered me at school today. Which creep? That Liam Carter guy. I told you about him before. The one who said he'd never marry anyone but me. He's so annoying. I managed to send him on a wild goose chase, but what if he comes back? He won't. I'm here, babe. I promise he will never bother you again. Huddled in the car, the poor soul who had just witnessed this exchange trembled. Arthur Lowe, an unlit cigarette dangling from his lips, clapped him on the shoulder. You okay? He asked sympathetically. Liam Carter buried his head in his hands, his body racked with silent pain. You said the photos were fake, Lowe continued. You said the video was doctored. Now you've seen it with your own eyes. You can't tell me your eyes are lying to you, can you? Liam said nothing. You're a smart guy. Preston Vance wouldn't have brought you into his inner circle otherwise. I trust you can make a sound judgment. It must be excruciating being betrayed by the 2 people you cared about most. Lowe's voice was calm, persuasive. Work with us. We can give you a chance at revenge. If you turn yourself in and cooperate, you might get a second chance. We'll get you the best lawyers, and we'll make sure you keep your dignity. We can give you 24 hours to think it over, Mr. Carter. The car moved smoothly along the elevated highway, the streetlights on either side blurring into 2 brilliant strings of pearls adorning the endless night. I don't need that long, Liam said, his voice eerily calm, a sign that his reason had returned. I'm in. He looked up, his eyes hard as stone. On one condition. I want Preston Vance sent to hell. News of a major crisis at Harlan Court broke across Seattle's most authoritative media outlets. Preston Vance had been systematically pressuring Sophia, but he had no idea that she had been quietly tightening a noose around his own neck. Harlan Court faced a bankruptcy scare 2 years ago and pulled through. They'll probably survive this one too. I don't know, this crisis looks way worse than the last one. The students at Lakeview University were buzzing about the news. Alex walked calmly down the hallway, unperturbed. Harlan Corp was just the unfortunate victim in all this. Its mistake was producing a fickle and utterly deceitful patriarch. The financial crisis 2 years ago had been a test set for Sophia by her uncle, Edward Vance. This new, more aggressive crisis was also tied to her, and by extension, it had somehow entangled a nobody like him. Alex pushed open the door to his academic advisor's office and was surprised to see a familiar face, Ethan Harlan. The advisor, Mr. Davies, quietly closed the door behind him. Ethan uncrossed his legs and adjusted his posture, offering Alex a faint smile. Good morning. Alex sat down across from him, composed. Mr. Harlan, what can I do for you? Ethan paused for a moment. The company has run into some trouble recently. I'm sure you've heard. Alex nodded. Harlan Corp was one of Seattle's largest corporations. Any tremor there could shake the whole city. The news was everywhere, on TV, online, on Twitter, flooding his social media feeds. He'd have to be deaf and blind to have missed it. He tried to guess Ethan's motive. Had Preston shifted the pressure onto Ethan, prompting this visit? Was Ethan here to persuade him to leave Sophia, so she would obediently accept Preston's terms? He was curious to see what approach Ethan would take. But Ethan's first words caught him completely off guard. How is Sophia doing? It was a simple, genuine question. She's doing fine. Ethan gave a self-deprecating smile. She must be under immense pressure right now. Unfortunately, I'm not talented enough to be of any real help to her. Alex watched him, his own expression calm, but his mind was racing. Ethan knew Sophia was involved in Harlan Corp's current predicament, yet he wasn't blaming her or demanding a solution. He was worried about whether she could handle it. If Alex didn't know the complicated history between them, he would think Ethan was the most respectable older brother imaginable. Alex had nothing more to say, so he just reiterated, she's fine. Really? Ethan looked at him deeply. That's a relief. I believe you. He stood up to leave, but Alex couldn't stop himself. Mr. Harlan, that time Sophie was hiding in the cistern. Why didn't you turn her in? Ethan froze, then murmured, she told you about that too? He looked down and chuckled softly. Who knows? I can't explain it myself. Maybe I wanted her to be free, like a bird. Or maybe I just wanted her to go far away and never appear in front of me again. After all this time, the real reason didn't seem to matter anymore. She's a good kid, Ethan said wistfully. It's Caleb's and my loss that we never got the chance to be real brothers to her. Thank you. I can tell she's much happier with you. He paused. I know she doesn't care, but I have to say it. No matter what trouble she faces, I will always be on her side. I just hope she'll be okay. He really said that? Of all the Harlans, he's the smartest and most cunning one. At the private kitchen, Sophia used her chopsticks to pick up a few grains of rice. She never had a big appetite, and any extra bite of meat she ate seemed to vanish into thin air, her weight barely changing. Fattening her up was going to be a long-term project. Sophie, Alex said thoughtfully, don't get mad, but I'm going to be honest. She didn't speak, just looked at him with her large, clear eyes, as deep as a mountain spring. I think Ethan Harlan has figured out your weakness. My weakness? What weakness? You're soft-hearted, Sophie. You're actually very soft-hearted. Sophia's expression was strange. It was the first time anyone had ever described her that way. Me, soft-hearted? On second thought, maybe she was. Her husband was a menace, especially when he was teasing her. Every time he drove her to tears, she'd furiously vow to ignore the big jerk forever. But the moment he wrapped her in his arms and whispered sweet nothings, the pain would vanish, and she'd forgive everything. Sigh, with a heart this soft, I'm doomed to be bullied by him for a lifetime. No, for all eternity. But she was perfectly willing to be bullied by her husband. If he ever stopped bullying her and turned his attention to someone else, she'd never allow it. Sophie, are the people at the company giving you a hard time? She shook her head. No. A few of the old board members had initially demanded she produce a solution, but they'd gone quiet. Thinking back, it was probably Ethan who had shielded her from the pressure. Having too much money is a problem. You're a constant security risk. If Orion is so rich, why didn't they give their precious heir a few bodyguards? You obviously didn't read the article. They did. The little brat complained about having no freedom, drugged the bodyguards with sleeping pills, and ran off. Who needs freedom when you're rich? People are just too greedy. A sudden, explosive news story had successfully diverted public attention from the Harlan Corp crisis. Jake Ramirez grabbed 2 cartons of yogurt from the cooler, handing one to Alex. You rich people are just nuts, he said with a cluck of his tongue. Isn't it better to just stay home, waited on hand and foot like a prince? Why do you always have to cause trouble? If he gets himself killed, at least things will be quiet. Why are you lumping me in with them? Alex protested. Because you're a rich guy now, too? Jake said, completely justified. The little Orion prince is still missing. It's not looking good. You better watch your back. Orion Enterprises was one of the most influential public companies in the country, topping the Fortune 500 for several years running and wielding considerable global power. Its founder and CEO, Walter Pierce, was a legendary figure. But Orion was in the headlines now not for its achievements, but because its CEO's only son, the 14-year-old Brandon Pierce, had disappeared. The story was that Brandon, in a fit of teenage rebellion against his sheltered life, had gotten his hands on some sleeping pills, knocked out his bodyguards, and run away in search of so-called freedom. 3 days had passed with no word. Given his identity, it was hard to be optimistic. Alex casually bit down on his straw, but he knew exactly where the little prince was. His disappearance was Preston Vance's doing. Preston had been eyeing Orion for a long time. A master of dirty tricks, he'd finally set his sights on Brandon Pierce. In Alex's past life, by getting his hands on Walter Pierce's only weakness, Preston had succeeded. Outwardly, Alex appeared calm, but he was following the news of Brandon's disappearance more closely than anyone. This was his chance. Walter Pierce was in his 60s, and Brandon was his entire world. If anything happened to his son, Walter wouldn't survive it. In the face of his son's safety, money and power meant nothing. He would have given his entire fortune to get his son back, alive and well. How else could Preston have won in the past? Alex wasn't as greedy as Preston. He didn't want Walter's fortune. He just wanted to leverage the powerful man's influence to build his own strength. That was all. Sis, I want to go home. Didn't you say you wanted freedom? It's only been 2 days. Is the little tamed beast already trying to get back in its cage? The girl stroked the boy's cheek as if petting a puppy. Be good. I promised I'd show you a good time for a couple of days, and I won't break my promise. I even took a day off work for this. With Saturday and Sunday, that's 3 whole days, okay? The boy, lying listlessly on the sofa, suddenly brightened. He sat up excitedly. Really, sis? Then let's go now. Oops, sorry, sis. I was so excited. I wasn't paying attention. It's fine. I'll go change. You wait here for me, okay? Okay. Hurry up, sis. I can't wait. The girl walked into the bedroom and closed the door. The boy sprang to his feet and lunged for the front door, yanking the handle. It was locked from the outside. He didn't have a key. Hearing the noise, the girl rushed out of the bedroom. The boy charged at her like a feral wolf cub, knocking her to the ground. His eyes were bloodshot. Where's the key? Give me the key. He found it on her, then scrambled to unlock the door and bolt. The girl, Eva Chun, coughed as she pushed herself up from the floor. She didn't chase him. The little brat wasn't getting away anyway. When the boy came to, a calm, emotionless voice greeted him. Hello, Brandon Pierce. Brandon's eyes darted around. He was in a car, speeding down a paved road. His hands and feet weren't tied, but besides the burly driver, there was a young man in the car who looked a few years older than him. With his skinny arms and legs, he was no match for them. Brandon feigned composure, his voice cracking from the early stages of puberty. Who are you? You want money, right? How much? Don't hurt me. I can get my dad to pay you. Someone chuckled softly. It was the young man. Brandon felt a flash of anger, but he quickly realized the young man looked friendly. There was no mockery in his laughter. His tone was gentle. You got it wrong, kid. We're not the ones who grabbed you. Brandon let out a breath of relief, only to tense up again. Bad guys didn't exactly wear signs. That horrible sister. What kind of sister was that? If that lying broad hadn't looked so delicate and helpless, he never would have been such a sap and run off chasing freedom. He eyed the young man warily. The young man just smiled at him. Brandon's nerves stretched even tighter. Damn it. How could he have such a sunny smile? People said you could judge a book by its cover. Could a bad guy smile so disarmingly? Hi, let me introduce myself. My name is Alex Turner. I'm a freshman at Lakeview. This is Arthur Lowe, with the good guys. That girl, Eva Chun, she's a classmate of mine. If we hadn't shown up when we did, her people would have already moved you out of Seattle. Doing a good deed and not taking credit was a fool's game. An introduction was necessary to make a lasting impression on this little prince. Brandon hesitated. Bro, if you say you're the good guys, I believe you. Can you help me call my dad? I want to go home. I don't think that's necessary, Alex replied. Brandon felt like he'd been played. You. Just then, the car slowed to a stop at the side of the road. A white-haired man rushed forward. The richest man in the country, Walter Pierce. Brandon? Brandon, is that you? Brandon froze. Under Alex's smiling gaze, he scrambled out of the car and threw himself into his father's arms. bursting into tears. After days apart, father and son clung to each other, weeping. Leaning against the car, an unlit cigarette in his mouth, Arthur Lowe watched the sunset, a faint smile playing on his lips. Alex cheerfully dialed a number. "Sorry, honey, I was out doing a good deed today, so I won't be home on time." "What's that? Sleep on the couch?" "You wouldn't." "I knew it." "Sophie, you're the best." "Eva, where's Brandon Pierce?" "Preston, that Brandon kid is horrible. I think he figured something was up. He jumped on me and started choking me. I almost died. You have to teach him a lesson for me." "I'm so sorry, babe. That must have been terrifying. Where's he now? Isn't he with you?" "I was just on my way to pick him up." "You let him get away?" "No. Preston, weren't you just downstairs? He just ran out. Did you not catch him?" "Brandon Pierce escaped?" Preston's pupils constricted. In a fit of rage, his hand flew up instinctively. Useless. Eva's slender body was sent sprawling by the sudden slap. She stared at Preston in shock, the gentle, caring man she thought she loved now a complete stranger. Preston grabbed his men and rushed to give chase. But a group of uniformed officers blocked their way at the elevator. "Which one of you is Preston Vance? Please come with us." Eva clutched her swelling cheek and sobbed into the phone. "Liam, someone hurt me. It hurts so much." There was a 3-second silence on the other end, then the faint sound of a low chuckle. "You deserved it." Eva stared at her phone screen. The number was correct. It was her Liam. "What? What did you say?" "I said you deserved it." Liam's voice was cold, tinged with a grim satisfaction. "You damn well deserved it." Eva felt as if she'd been plunged into ice water. Officers rushed in, cold handcuffs snapped on her wrists, and, as she was pushed into a police car, she saw Preston, also in cuffs. She knew her life was over. "Alex, you're a freaking magician." Arthur Lowe parked the car smoothly in the garage, still shaking his head in disbelief. Alex unbuckled his seatbelt with a modest smile. It wasn't magic, just a series of fortunate coincidences. The spoiled brat Brandon Pierce, who didn't know how good he had been venting his frustrations online when he met a gentle, beautiful older girl. The smitten teenager was completely captivated and ran off to meet her. That girl was Eva Chun, who had mistaken the scumbag Preston Vance for her Prince Charming and was willing to do anything for him. Alex, using the excuse that he pitted Liam Carter's unrequited love for Eva, had been keeping an eye on her. Once he had a plausible reason, everything else fell into place. Lowe got out of the car and stretched luxuriously. "I'm going to sleep well tonight." The evidence obtained from Liam was packaged by Sophia and sent straight to the prosecutor's office. Preston was arrested, and his criminal network was swiftly dismantled by an elite task force. He never dreamed that going up against Sophia would lead to such a catastrophic defeat. He'd forgotten that, growing up, he had never once beaten her. Even without a reincarnator like Alex meddling behind the scenes, he never would have one. Losing was inevitable. It was only a matter of when. With Preston's threat gone, life returned to normal. If you didn't count the fact that Alex was now grounded by Sophia. Strictly speaking, it wasn't grounding. He was still allowed to go to 4 places: Sophia's mansion, his parents' house, the university, and the private kitchen. Anywhere else was off limits. Even Starbright Market was forbidden, because a certain troublemaking kid who was trying to steal Alex away would stake out the market, begging Alex to hang out with him. This was a capital offense, a direct challenge to Sophia's authority. She wasn't usually so tyrannical. She didn't overly restrict his freedom. Alex was allowed to see Jake, Simon, and his other friends. That was probably because they all had one thing in common. They knew their place. They kept a normal, friendly distance from Alex and didn't trigger Sophia's insecurities. But the certain Master Pierce was another story. He had no concept of the word boundaries in the adult world. Of course, you couldn't really blame him. He was, after all, still a kid. Ever since Alex had swooped in like a hero and saved him from the clutches of a man-eating sorceress, Brandon had developed a powerful mix of dependence and hero worship. Taking a break from school to recover from the trauma, he'd flown from back east to Seattle. He followed Alex around, calling him Alex Bro with nauseating affection. To get even closer, he'd even try to get Michael and Emily Turner to adopt him as their godson. The Turners didn't mind having another smart, sweet-tongued son. Alex wasn't bothered by a little brother who posed no threat to his status in the family. But Sophia minded. At first, she hadn't thought much of a little brat. His adoration of her husband was just proof of Alex's charisma. But suddenly, she realized things were taking a wrong turn. The little pipsqueak had gotten it into his head to compete with her for her husband. He was actually whining to Alex, asking Alex to sleep with him. Even if it was because he had a cold and was feeling lonely and just wanted some comfort, it was absolutely not allowed. Her husband slept with her, and her alone. Everyone else could get lost. Her possessiveness flaring, Sophia lost her appetite. Husband, you don't think that kid is. You know. Gay, do you? Puffed. Alex sprayed a mouthful of water, coughing and sputtering. Cough, cough. Sophie, you're overthinking it. He's definitely not. He's just a kid. Then why is he always clinging to you? It's so annoying. I really want to just squish him. Squishing people is illegal. So, is he or isn't he? He's got that pretty boy look, all rosy lips and clear skin. He looks like a total bottom. Alex almost sprayed water again. You even know what a bottom is? He vaguely remembered female classmates in his past life whispering about tops and bottoms, but he'd never paid much attention. Then one day Jake had come to him, furious, complaining that some girl said he looked like a bottom, which had nearly made his lungs explode. After a bit of reluctant research, Alex's worldview had been thoroughly shattered as he finally understood the concept. He sighed. His ethereal, otherworldly goddess of a girlfriend was becoming more and more down to earth. Sophia was still fixated. So, do you think he looks like one? To put his beloved's mind at ease, Alex stated with conviction, no, not at all. He's definitely not gay and not a bottom. Even though Brandon was, admittedly, as pretty as a girl. Besides, other than his whininess, Brandon wasn't remotely effeminate. If not kept in check, he was more likely to become a rebellious, spoiled brat. Think about it, Sophie, Alex reasoned. If Brandon were gay, how could he have been so smitten with Eva Chun? But Sophia still couldn't understand why Brandon would act so clingy with Alex. He's not just like that with me, Alex explained. He's like that with my parents, and he's even tried it with Jake. A murderous aura surrounded Sophia. But he only wants to cling to you. I've never seen him cling to your parents or Jake. How do you explain that? Maybe because I saved him, Alex offered. The reason failed to convince her. But Mr. Lowe was with you, she shot back, annoyed. He was the kid's savior too. I don't see him clinging to Mr. Lowe. Alex thought for a moment. Mr. Lowe is too old. There's a generation gap. With me, there's no gap. After much coaxing, he managed to placate his jealous girlfriend. It had been over a month since Preston Vance's arrest. In his mad dash to realize his ambition of world domination over the past 2 years, he had become increasingly reckless and had accumulated a mountain of bloody debts. A capital sentence was inevitable. If only he had been content to be a lazy, rich heir, he wouldn't have ended up in such a sorry state. Out of respect for Edward Vance, Sophia went to see him one last time, with Alex accompanying her. Preston showed no remorse, spouting nonsense about how it was either success or death. He said he'd rather die than live a cowardly life. His only regret was that he had never beaten Sophia, not even once. His only comfort was that the person who defeated him was her. Joe, Preston's voice suddenly turned wistful. I want to ask you for a favor. What is it? When the time comes, scatter my ashes over Lake Granby. I miss my dad. A small, cold smile touched Sophia's lips. Fine. Joe, what else? Why do you like Alex Turner so much? What does he have that I don't? Sophia wanted to say, he has everything you don't. But seeing him in this state, she decided against it. He's the only person who's ever been truly good to me without wanting something in return. At the mention of Alex, the icy wall around Sophia melted away. A gentle smile softened her features, and her eyes warmed. Preston's teeth itched with jealousy. How can you be so sure? Maybe he saw you were well-dressed and guessed you were rich. Or maybe he just saw you were pretty and had designs on you from a young age. I know what you're thinking, that I'm being cynical, that he was just a kid and couldn't have had such complicated thoughts. But let me tell you this. The day my uncle brought you home, I was already thinking about marrying you when we grew up. Sophia calmly refuted him. When I met him, the clothes I was wearing were stolen from a farmhouse I passed on the road. I wasn't pretty then either. My hair was cut short, and my face was covered in chickenpox. And as you know, my personality isn't exactly charming. She gave a self-deprecating laugh. Back then, she'd been like a tiny hedgehog with all its quills raised, convinced the whole world was out to get her, hiding from everyone she met. But her husband, the husband fate had delivered to her, didn't care that she was ugly or strange. He had quietly brought her food and water, staying with her through the most terrifying and helpless time of her life. Even now, Sophia could still remember the look in that little boy's eyes, cautious, yet full of concern. Preston was speechless. After a long silence, he finally broke it. Your mother. Don't mention her to me. Sophia cut him off, her voice glacial. She's been dead for years. Let her rest in peace. Preston fell silent again. So, she preferred to think of the woman who brought her into this world as dead. She truly hated her. Catherine had promised him she wouldn't let Sophia fall any deeper. But before she could act, he'd been arrested. This unpredictable, screwed-up life. What could he do but accept it? The winner takes all. He had to concede. Visiting hours were over. Sophia stood up and walked out. Alex was waiting for her by the door. Seeing her walk toward him with her usual composure, he reached out and pulled her into his arms. Charles Harrington was waiting by the curb with the car. "Let's go to your parents for lunch," Sophia said suddenly. "Okay," Alex agreed. He had wondered what happened to Catherine, Sophia's biological mother, after Preston's arrest. Had she found a new patron, or had she finally given up and disappeared? He had no way of knowing. Sophia hadn't tried to find her. As far as she was concerned, the woman had died in that car crash years ago. Alex hoped it was the latter. From now on, they could go their separate ways and never cross paths again. That was the best outcome he could imagine. If she kept pushing, she would only humiliate herself. "Is this little guy even a month old? Let's give it some meat. It must be hungry." "No, you can't feed it meat. It's too small. It needs milk." Michael and Emily's voices drifted over. Alex and Sophia exchanged confused glances. As they got closer, they saw the couple huddled over something no bigger than a mouse. "Alex, bro, you're here." A figure shot out from nowhere, arms spread wide, charging toward Alex. Alex sighed. Why is this little brat here, too? He instinctively tried to dodge, but Brandon was coming in too fast. Just as a collision seemed imminent, Brandon slammed on the brakes about a foot away. He had spotted Sophia on Alex's arm. He broke into a wide grin and called out sweetly, "Hi, Angel." Alex's mouth twitched. "Angel? Seriously? Who taught him that?" Sophia just grunted in response, ignoring him. She held a grudge and hadn't forgotten that this little pest had tried to steal her husband. Besides, she wasn't exactly friendly to strangers to begin with. But Brandon, despite his youth, had a thick skin. Pretending not to notice Sophia's sour expression, he trotted behind her, chirping Angel over and over. Sophia might have a petty streak, but as the saying goes, you don't hit a smiling face. She couldn't really stay mad at a teenager, so she would occasionally offer a cool, non-committal reply. Alex pulled Brandon aside. "Who taught you to call her that?" he whispered. "Jake Bro." Brandon whispered back. "Jake Bro is a genius. I think it's working. Sophie sis is talking to me now." Alex was speechless, just as he'd suspected. The kid hadn't known what he'd done to offend Sophia, so he'd gone to Jake for advice. After hearing the story, Jake had been horrified, telling him gravely, "Dude, you should thank your lucky stars your dad's a Titan, or you'd be dead by now." Brandon finally understood the problem. Alex Bro belonged to Angel Sis. No one else was allowed to covet him, in any way, shape, or form. Brandon was a sharp kid. With just a few words of guidance from Jake, he immediately understood how colossally he had screwed up. His future happiness in Seattle depended entirely on this Angel's mood. That night, he found a stray puppy. A light bulb went off in his head, and he immediately devised a strategic plan, which he was now eagerly putting into action. "Angel. Don't call me Angel." "Sis." Sophia didn't reply. Brandon beamed, holding up the fluffy creature like a trophy. "Sis, look. Isn't he cute?" The puppy's fur was a glossy black. Its belly, full of milk, was round and puffed in and out with each breath, making you want to poke it with a finger. A little milk mustache ringed its mouth, and its big, dark, dewy eyes stared up at the expressionless human before it, full of a clear, innocent stupidity. Brandon felt a flicker of anxiety. He had asked Jake yesterday for tips on how to win Sophia over. Jake had pointed at his own nose and laughed incredulously. "Kid, you're giving me way too much credit. How would I know?" Then he'd added, "But you could try to appeal to her interests. The thing is, what is she even like?" "From what I can tell, she only likes her Alex Bro." Finally, the master of bad advice offered what he considered a reasonably sound idea. "Why don't you go ask your dad to throw a $10 billion project her way? Maybe she'll be nicer to you for the money." Brandon had just rolled his eyes and walked away. Jake was left sighing dramatically. Sophia was the richest person in Seattle. The Pierces were the richest family in the country. In terms of sheer wealth, the Pierces obviously had the upper hand. He really wanted to know how the ridiculously rich Sophia, who treated money like dirt, would react to a $10 billion project. Alex reached out and stroked the puppy's head. "He's adorable." Sophia stared at the little thing without a word. Brandon was crestfallen. When he'd found the puppy, he thought that some girls liked small, fluffy animals. Hoping the Angel might be one of them, he had brought it over, full of anticipation. But it seemed she wasn't the animal-loving type. He'd miscalculated. Then again, the Angel was no ordinary girl. It was normal for her not to like them. At least Alex Bro seemed to like it. The puppy was transferred from Brandon's arms to Alex's. The soft fur and warmth of the tiny body nearly melted Alex's heart. He'd always loved animals. As a child, he'd kept sparrows, turtles, and stray cats. But after each one had died and he'd cried his eyes out, his family had forbidden him from keeping any more pets. It was just too heartbreaking. Later, with less space at home and more schoolwork, the idea of having a pet had slowly faded. The little puppy trembled in his palm, a pitiable, heart-wrenching sight. Alex held it out to Sophia. "Isn't he fun?" Fighting the urge to back away, Sophia said, out of the blue, "Is this how you saw me back then? Like this?" Alex was confused. It wasn't until Sophia reached out a finger and hesitantly touched the puppy's head, muttering, "It looks like a big mouse," that he understood. When they talked about their first meeting that summer, Alex had jokingly mentioned hearing a noise next door and thinking it was a mouse. She still remembered. Alex moved his hand closer, his smile indulgent. "Want to hold him?" Sophia took a step back. Brandon, thinking she was worried about germs, quickly explained, "I took him to a pet shop as soon as I found him yesterday. He's had a bath and been dewormed. He's very clean." Sophia shook her head. Touching the puppy's head with one finger was the biggest concession she could make for her beloved husband. To anyone else, it would seem she just disliked animals. But after all their time together, Alex knew her better. He could see she was tense. The brilliant prodigy of the business world was nervous around a cute, cuddly, milk-scented puppy. A seed of doubt was planted in Alex's mind. By the time everyone was gathered around the dining table for lunch, that doubt had grown into a full-blown, unsettling anxiety. The cause was, once again, the harmless little puppy. Brandon, admitting he didn't know how to care for an animal, had given it to Emily, who seemed quite taken with it. She found a cardboard box, lined it with a blanket, and made a temporary bed. The puppy, full and content, fell asleep inside. During lunch, it woke up. Twisting its chubby body, it managed to climb out of the box. It sniffed around, growing bolder as it explored, following the sound of human voices into the dining room. Everyone was laughing and talking around the table. Sophia had a habit of not eating shrimp, but she'd started eating it since being with Alex. It wasn't that she disliked it. She just hated peeling it. With her resources, she could easily have someone peel shrimp for her. But she had another quirk. She wouldn't eat shrimp peeled by anyone else. Only Alex. And there was no doubt about it. Alex, granted the exclusive right to peel shrimp for Sophia, felt deeply honored. Today, there was a dish of pan-fried shrimp on the table. Alex placed a perfectly peeled shrimp in Sophia's bowl, then noticed she was sitting ramrod straight in her chair, not daring to move. He had only seen her this tense once before, in his past life, when he had foolishly tried to leave her. He leaned in, his voice a low, worried whisper. "What's wrong?" Sophia's voice trembled. "My foot." What was wrong with her foot? Alex quickly looked under the table. When he saw what was there, he couldn't help but smile. The puppy, tentatively named Pudge, had taken a keen interest in the white slipper on Sophia's foot and was now climbing all over it, sniffing curiously. Alex was amused. He was about to tell her not to be scared, that it was just Pudge, when he remembered that while he was peeling the shrimp, he had seen Sophia glance down. That meant she knew it was the puppy on her foot. So why was she still so scared? Was she afraid of dogs? Even a tiny puppy, no bigger than a mouse, that was cute enough to melt hearts? Alex bent down and scooped Pudge off her foot. Only then did Sophia seem to relax. Usually, Sophia would linger after a meal to chat with Emily. But this time, whether because of Brandon or for some other reason, she wanted to leave shortly after they finished eating. She wasn't a talkative person, except when she was with Alex. But today, her silence was so pronounced that even Charles Harrington noticed something was wrong. He shot Alex a questioning look. "What happened?" Alex shook his head. He didn't know, but he was sure of one thing. Pudge was what had upset her. That was just the surface, though. The real reason was something he would have to uncover. Sophia seemed to have some kind of fear of dogs. Later, Alex found a moment to ask Charles privately. "Uncle Charles, was Sophie ever bitten by a dog?" Charles was surprised. "With us around, how could we possibly let something like that happen to her?" "Well," Charles added after a thought, "in all the years we've been with Miss Sophia, I can guarantee she's never been bitten. But as for her childhood, I can't say for sure." However, according to Charles, he had never noticed Sophia showing any fear or dislike of dogs or other small animals. But he also admitted his opinion wasn't very reliable. There were no pets at the mansion, so Sophia rarely had any contact with animals in her daily life. When Alex described what had happened at lunch, Charles was just as puzzled. After discussing it, they both agreed that Sophia's reaction must be linked to her childhood. Charles sighed. Who knows how much she suffered as a child? Thank goodness she has you with her now. At dinner that evening, Alex tested the waters. Sophie, if you don't like that puppy, I'll have Brandon take it back. I don't dislike it, Sophia said, trying to be considerate. Let's keep it. I think your parents really like him. She was back to normal, so much so that for a moment, Alex wondered if he had imagined her freezing in terror at the sight of the puppy earlier that day. Sophia offered an explanation. When he was crawling on my foot at lunch, I thought it was a giant rat. It just startled me, and I couldn't snap out of it for a minute. Alex chuckled. And here I thought my Sophie was all-powerful and fearless. Turns out you're afraid of rats. But then he remembered that summer. The abandoned house where Sophia had hidden was crawling with rats. When he'd snuck over to stay with her at night, the sound of them scurrying around would often wake them up, but he never saw her show any fear. Sophie, your courage seems to be shrinking, he teased. I remember you weren't afraid of rats when you were little. Sophia, trying to save face, said haughtily, a mere rat couldn't possibly scare me. I was worried there was a rat in the house that might scare your parents. What a model daughter-in-law, Alex praised. She grinned. I'm not just a model daughter-in-law, I'm a model wife. Alex's gaze deepened. He reached out and traced his finger along her red lips, as if wiping away a stray crumb. But they both knew what he was really thinking. A blush crept up Sophia's cheeks. She caught his mischievous hand. You're terrible, she chided. He grinned wickedly. What was that? I didn't hear you. How the tables have turned. In his past life, Sophia had been his nightmare. Back then, he never would have dreamed that one day, the she-devil would call him terrible with such a wistful, adoring tone. She might have a side to her that was beyond ordinary people, but she also had the heart of a girl her age. Sophia knew he was teasing her again. She mumbled, terrible husband. Alex pressed his advantage. If she was going to call him terrible, he might as well live up to it. How am I terrible? She shot him a glare. You tell me. I'm asking because I don't know, he said innocently. Ugh, I'm not talking to you anymore. Though her words were a complaint, she felt a wave of relief. From his reaction, it seemed her excuse had worked. An image of the puppy's wet eyes and round belly flashed in her mind. It really was an adorable, fluffy little thing. She hoped it would grow up quickly. Once it was bigger, she wouldn't be scared anymore. Alex was always considerate, except when he wasn't. Perfection is impossible, and in some areas, he fell short. Lately, he had been depriving Sophia of sleep. But Sophia was a model wife. She would willingly give him her life, so she was more than happy to indulge him. Thankfully, while Alex could sometimes be like an untamed stallion, he usually managed to exercise some restraint and not tire her out too much. A wife was meant to be loved, cherished, and cared for. Since Sophia was a model daughter-in-law and wife, he had to strive to be a model husband. That night, after they showered together, Alex managed to rein in his inner turmoil. He held Sophia close, patting her back gently as he hummed, sleep now, my darling wife." Sophia lay obediently in his arms, her eyes closed. "Husband, I want to hear a lullaby." This was a challenge. Alex was hopelessly tone-deaf. "If I start singing, you won't get a wink of sleep all night." "I don't care. I want to hear it." All right. I'll sing." Alex took a moment to prepare, cleared his throat, and began to sing softly. It was admittedly not great. He was so off-key, it was almost impressive. But it wasn't so terrible as to keep her awake all night. Sophia's restless heart gradually settled. She, who had thought she would be up all night, slowly drifted off to sleep in her husband's embrace, lulled by the lullaby sung just for her. Once her breathing evened out, Alex stopped singing. Winter was approaching, and the nights were getting colder. He pulled the comforter up over her bare shoulders and tucked it in securely behind her back. Not that she was cold. She often called him her personal furnace, saying it was always warm sleeping in his arms. After that, Alex didn't turn off the light right away. He lay in the quiet, watching the girl in his arms. They slept together every night. Sometimes she woke first, sometimes he did. They were intimately familiar with each other's sleeping faces. But on many mornings, Alex would open his eyes to find Sophia already awake, just watching him. She did it every morning she woke before him, never tiring of it. It made him wonder sometimes, looking in the mirror, if he was really that handsome. Alex pressed a soft kiss to her smooth forehead. Sweet dreams. This girl. She was hiding something from him again. He could tell. They had been together for so long, he knew her inside and out. Her reaction at lunch today was definitely not what she claimed. It looked more like terror. It was hard to imagine what could possibly terrify Sophia. It certainly wasn't a harmless little puppy. There was a secret she was keeping, even from him. It must be something she was desperate to forget, something she couldn't bear to face. So Alex pretended to accept her explanation, not daring to dig any deeper. But weighed on him. He wanted to share her burdens. Thankfully, he wasn't completely useless. He could offer her a warm embrace, a safe place to fall asleep. Alex couldn't sleep. Holding Sophia, listening to her steady, even breathing, his mind raced in the darkness. Finally, his thoughts turned to Brandon Pierce. His elaborate plan to stage a hero saves the day scenario had paid off. He had successfully forged a connection with the richest man in the country, Walter Pierce. After finding out who had tricked and kidnapped his son, Walter Pierce was so shaken he didn't sleep for days. His gratitude toward Alex, the boy who had saved his son, was as immense as his fear had been. Walter Pierce owed him a massive debt. For a man to whom money was no object, paying off a debt of gratitude with cash was the simplest solution. But when he was about to offer Alex a large sum, he noticed the limited edition luxury brands Alex was wearing and silently closed his mouth. A young man who casually wore clothes worth hundreds of thousands of dollars. Did he really need a handout? Then, he observed Alex more closely. He was confident and poised, with a sharp mind and a refined presence. Walter realized his initial impulse to throw money at his son's savior was a grave mistake. He was an excellent judge of character, and he could see that Alex was a rare talent. As his admiration for Alex grew, he couldn't help but wish he had a daughter instead of just one troublesome son. Setting aside the life debt, Walter felt a genuine liking for Alex. This was a young friend he was determined to make. Everything was unfolding just as Alex had hoped. It was good to have powerful allies. And Alex had two of the most powerful, Sophia and Walter Pierce. Perhaps Brandon counted as a third. Brandon might act like a little adult, spouting grand pronouncements beyond his years. But when you got to know him, you realized he was just a kid who had been overprotected his whole life, putting on a mature front to fool people. Honestly, Brandon's attachment to him had been a surprise. According to Brandon, when he thought he was done for, Alex's smile, pure and untainted, had been like the first light of dawn breaking through the night, showing him the way home. If there were gods in this world, then his Alex bro was one of them. Alex bro must have heard his soul's desperate plea and descended from the heavens to save him from hell. He was his great hero. Just thinking of that warm smile made him feel like he could face anything. And so, Brandon Pierce had found his purpose in life. He wanted to be just like Alex bro. Everyone else who got close to him did so, because of who he was, because they wanted something from him. But not Alex bro. Alex felt a flush of embarrassment. He was no hero. He was just an opportunist who had used his knowledge of the future to get ahead. The girl in his arms suddenly twitched, pulling Alex from his thoughts. He thought she had woken up, but quickly realized she hadn't. She was shifting restlessly in his arms. He held her tighter, patting her back and brushing his lips against her forehead. Under his soothing touch, she stilled. The frown on her brow slowly smoothed out, and her breathing became regular again. A nightmare. In all the time they had shared a bed, this was the first time something like this had happened, aside from the one time he'd gotten up in the middle of the night and she'd woken up, thought he was gone, and curled up on the floor crying. Alex's own brow furrowed. He couldn't help but connect this to her frightened reaction to the puppy that afternoon. She herself had said the puppy was cute and had even told his parents to keep it, which felt to Alex like she was trying desperately to hide her fear. A shiver went down his spine. Yes, that's what it was, fear. It sounded ridiculous. A brilliant prodigy, afraid of a harmless little puppy? No one would believe it. Alex didn't want to believe it, but he trusted his own eyes and his own judgment more. Lost in heavy thoughts, Alex eventually drifted off to sleep. When he woke, the space beside him was empty. He stretched. He had slept so soundly he hadn't even heard Sophia get up. He glanced at the time. It was past 8. There was a missed call on his phone. He called back. Emily's cheerful voice came through the line. Just getting up? You little sleepyhead. You'd better be more diligent. If Sophie gets tired of your laziness and leaves you, I don't know where you'll go crying. Sophie would never get tired of me, Alex said smugly. Just then, Sophia walked into the room. Sophie, come here, Alex called, waving her over. Quick, tell my mom you'll never get tired of me in this lifetime. Sophia came over with a smile. Seeing it wasn't a video call, she affectionately wrapped her arms around Alex's neck, pressing her cheek against his. While they were far from shy and private, Sophia was always very reserved in front of their parents. At most, they would hold hands. Anything more felt embarrassing. The moment her smooth skin touched his, Alex's mind went blank. He turned his head and stole a quick peck on her lips. In front of his mom, or rather, his mom on the other end of the phone, Sophia blushed. Alex had only recently discovered that the girl who called him husband all the time was actually quite thin-skinned. Perhaps calling him that was just her way of staking her claim on him for all the world to see. In any case, her tendency to blush was a complete mismatch with her cool, aloof heiress image. Of course, this didn't mean she wasn't aloof. Her shy, cute side was for his eyes only. Sophia silently mouthed terrible husband at him, then said sweetly into the phone, "That's right, Aunt Emily. I'll never, ever get tired of him." On the other end, Emily beamed. A happy son and daughter-in-law made for happy parents. "You just spoil him," she said playfully. "Be careful you don't spoil him rotten." "I'm not afraid," Sophia said, full of confidence. "If he ever dares to be anything but good to me, I know you and Uncle Michael will have my back." Emily confirmed that was an absolute certainty. As his status in the family hierarchy continued to sink, Alex felt not a trace of sadness, but a secret joy. The age-old, intractable problem of mother-in-law and daughter-in-law drama would never be an issue in their family. A harmonious family brings prosperity. After all, what was a little suffering on his part? Yes, he was just that self-sacrificing. He pulled Sophia into his lap, and then heard a piece of unexpected news from his mom. "Cody's getting engaged? How old is he this year? What's so strange about that?" Emily countered. "Don't you have Sophie?" Alex wanted to say it was different, but then he thought, how was it different? He'd already jumped the gun, and he hadn't even officially proposed yet. Not that he didn't want to. He was desperate to give Sophia a proper title, or rather, ever give him one. But his age was a problem. When Emily had called earlier, Alex had been asleep. Sophia had been about to answer for him when Emily hung up, probably guessing they were still in bed and not wanting to disturb them. Sophia had called her back, learned the news, and had already agreed that she and Alex would make the trip out to the country. The whole family of 4 was going, which meant someone had to watch Pudge, the puppy. The Ramirezes were asked to help, and that was how Jake, upon hearing they were going to the countryside, shamelessly invited himself along. A city boy through and through, he'd never experienced rural life. In the past, whenever Alex went away, Jake had no one to play with. Hearing Alex's stories of country adventures had made him incredibly curious. He'd always dreamed of going with him. Michael and Emily were happy to bring along the boy they'd watched grow up, but Jake's parents, David and Maria, didn't want to impose. That changed in 7th grade, after Jake brought home a report card with 2 failing grades. After a stern talking to, his father had stood on the balcony, chain-smoking in despair, when he had a flash of inspiration. Using the excuse of broadening his horizons, he had asked the Turners to take Jake with them on their next trip. That summer was a blissful one for Alex and his cousin, Mark, because Jake's dad had sent them with a mountain of snacks. Jake had a blast for the first 2 days, catching fish, trapping shrimp, and raiding birds' nests. But less than a week later, he was crying and begging to go home. His father had specifically asked that Jake be taught a lesson. Alex's uncle, Sean, understanding the request, had carried it out to the letter. Under the blazing sun, pulling weeds in the fields was novel for a few minutes. After half an hour, Jake was drenched in sweat, his back and legs aching. After a whole morning of it, he thought he was going to die. He did come back with a newfound determination to study, but it was short-lived. Some things you just can't change. The boy who was born to hate school remained a slacker. This time, Jake rode with Michael and Emily. He wouldn't dare be a third wheel with Alex and Sophia. That princeling Brandon Pierce had a titan for a father, so he could get away with whining for Alex to spend the night with him. Jake had no such protection. It was better to be safe than sorry. "Jake has been to your grandma's house before. He was your neighbor, and you two went to the same school from kindergarten all the way through high school." Alex grunted another hum, thinking, "My lady, you should know all this by now, shouldn't you?" Sophia mumbled, "This is so annoying." Alex was completely lost. Her bad moods always came out of nowhere. "Jake got to be a part of your entire life growing up, but I didn't," she said, sounding dejected. "I thought at least I had the countryside memories with you that he didn't, but it turns out he beat me there too." Alex didn't know whether to laugh or cry. He'd been worried he'd have to start stressing about Jake after Brandon, but it turned out her complaint was that she'd lost her 1 point of superiority over Jake. His Sophie was always full of surprises. The regret was mutual. She had missed his childhood, but he had missed hers, too. If he had a time machine, he would go back and do everything in his power to save her. "Sophie, you don't need to compare yourself to Jake. Do I spend every day with Jake? Am I going to spend the rest of my life with Jake? Do I lie in bed with Jake every night, holding him close and whispering, 'Babe, I love you,' in his ear?" That last part, of course, he couldn't say out loud. Even if Charles, the driver, was as unobtrusive as an NPC when they didn't need him. Of course not, Sophia said fiercely. Anyone who dared to try and steal her husband would die. She wasn't kidding. Alex had slept poorly the night before and was feeling drowsy. The issue of her being scared by the puppy could wait. She didn't want to talk about it, and, out of respect, he wouldn't push her. Sophia held on to him, staring blankly out the window as the scenery sped by. After so many years, she was returning to the place where she first met her husband, and her heart was racing with excitement. But she wondered, they had gone to bed early last night, so why did he look more tired than when they'd had a wild night? If she wasn't certain he had spent the entire night lying quietly beside her, she would suspect he had been out robbing banks. A shadow crossed Sophia's eyes. She thought of the dream she'd had. The scenes from her dream. No, from her past, were things she didn't dare to recall. If her husband weren't here with her, if she weren't in his arms right now, if he weren't her shining light giving her strength, how could she pretend to be so unaffected? She wanted to forget those things. She had even thought she had. But tragically, the past had seeped into her blood and carved itself into her bones. At any unexpected moment, it would surge forth, tormenting her without mercy, a pain that would last until death. But it's okay. My husband is with me. Nestled in Alex's arms, Sophia listened to the beat of his heart and closed her eyes, feeling safe. Michael's car led the way, with Charles following behind. They set off at 9 and, after nearly 3 hours on the road, arrived just before noon. Emily had gotten the news around 6 that morning. It had all been very sudden. She and Michael had planned to leave earlier, but they'd waited until 9 because their sleepyhead son wasn't up. Normally, that wouldn't be a problem. They'd just wake him up. But things were different now. He was still their son, but he was also their daughter-in-law's husband. It was a sad thought, but they had stepped down from their leading role in his life. From now on, they had to get their daughter-in-law's approval. It was a matter of respect. Their daughter-in-law had said he hadn't gotten enough sleep, and it was clear she didn't want to wake him. So, the considerate in-laws decided to wait. Arriving a little late was no big deal. Alex had caught up on some sleep in the car and was feeling refreshed. As soon as he stepped out, the fresh country air, tinged with the scent of earth, hit him. Sophia stared at the impressive 2-story house in front of them, momentarily stunned. Alex took her hand and led her forward. My uncle's family used to live in a brick house. They built this new one 2 years ago. See? Almost all the old brick houses are gone now. They're all modern homes. A hint of disappointment flickered in Sophia's eyes. Did that mean their secret base, the little abandoned courtyard, was gone too? On the way here, she had planned to go back to that old farmhouse to reminisce about her childhood with her husband. Was that plan now ruined? A sudden emptiness bloomed in her chest. Alex leaned in and whispered in her ear, "I'll tell you a secret. The neighbors who used to live next to my grandma moved away for work and aren't planning on coming back. So their house was never torn down and rebuilt." At his words, Sophia's eyes lit up. Her memories with her husband were still there.